Hello, hello, hello. You guys hear me okay? Testing, testing. Let me raise this volume a little bit. Hello, hello, hello. Might be clipping. Maybe good here? Maybe right here? That might be good. You guys tell me if the volume ends up being too low or whatever. Alright. How we doing, everybody? Oh, shit. What did I do here? Hold on. Okay. I think we're good. No, is the audio off? No, the audio is definitely on. You guys can definitely hear me. All right. Okay. Prog rock album, thanks for the 10. Off topic, but thank you for accepting that Uranus destroyed Lucia. The weapons parallel with the admirals, the gods of Chandra, Gedatsu's cover story, events of Alabasta, etc. All hint to it, but many deny it. So I do think that the weapon is the Uranus is what destroyed Lucia. Also, thank you very much for the first super. I don't think I 100% follow everything you're saying. The weapons parallel with the admirals. Let's walk that back for a second. So I assume Uranus would parallel Kizaru. Pluton parallels Akainu, god of the underworld, some sort of destructive ship. I could see that. Aokiji parallels Poseidon. Could kind of see that. Akainu's Aokiji's got the most power over the sea. I could see that. That's interesting. I don't know how it parallels Gedatsu's cover story or the events of Alabasta, but everyone wants to talk about Kendrick versus Drake. I don't have a ton to say because I'm not super. I know I just have never liked Drake's music much, and you know what's interesting is I never really listened to Kendrick. Period. Like I listened to everybody's heard some Kendrick music at some point in their life. I don't know. Like I tried to actively listen to a Kendrick song sometime back before this, and I didn't like the sound of his voice. It sounded kind of weird and synthetic to me. The way that he, the way his vocals are. But then, when this whole Kendrick-Drake beef started, I was like, okay, I kind of understand what's going on. So I listened to Euphoria. And when I listened to Euphoria, my mind was fucking blown by, to me right away. I'd never heard, I don't think I'd ever heard, I just didn't expect that. Because I'd listened to, a bit of J. Cole. But what Kendrick did with Euphoria sounded way, it sounded like there were way more layers to what he was doing, both in terms of lyrics, but also in terms of just music and how he changed his voice for different parts of the song and everything. I was mind blown. So then after that, what I was doing 2 days ago on Saturday while I was driving, I was listening to Pimp a Butterfly from start to finish. I still haven't finished the album, but totally changed my mind on Kendrick in general. And then I listened to the rest of the songs, I don't think I've heard every song in the beef just yet, but I'm not super interested in the beef now. But I did change my mind about Kendrick a lot just because I'd never really given it a real shot. That's all I gotta say. I don't think I've ever really liked Drake songs. Just not my style. All right, everybody, let's get through Lex to 100 real quick. Zikoy, thanks for bringing Yonko to your member for 2 months. Frankie has to become Pluton. His bounty posters of the Sunny, and in the bad timeline, he's a ship, so I believe Frankie needs to become Pluton. But if in the bad timeline he becomes a ship, wouldn't we want to stay in a good timeline? I believe Frankie will create Pluton. If Frankie makes Pluton and makes himself Pluton, that would be so insane. It would make Frankie one of the strongest characters, period, right? That would be, forget Jinbei. Jinbei's out of there. Jinbei's no longer in discussion, right? It would just be Frankie and the monster trio, basically. That would be pretty cool. I'm all for that. I would love for Frankie to just be more important in the story. Him creating Pluton is huge, but him becoming Pluton is even bigger because then you can't just sideline Frankie for a bit because that's fucking Pluton, you know? If you have him make Pluton, then it's like, okay, so he made Pluton, now Pluton exists out there, and now Frankie's role is kind of done in that sense, and Oda can go back to just shafting him and stuffing him in the closet. But if Frankie is Pluton, well then you can't, Frankie's just as important as fucking Robin then. You can't overlook Frankie. That's fucking Pluton walking around all the time. African Lays, thanks for the 10. Morj, I remember you were talking about Invincible Season 2. Did you ever get to watch it and what were your thoughts? I really liked what they did with Omni-Man this season. The space scene hit hard. So I did not watch Invincible Season 2. Maybe I'll catch up on it at some point. but there was just no buzz around it. For me, the only reason I watched Invincible 1 even was because there was so much discussion about it, so much buzz going on about Invincible. It was just like, okay, I gotta give it a shot. And then once you watch the first episode, for those of you who know what happens in the first episode of Invincible, if you watch the first episode to the end, like all the way to the end, including post-credits, etc., then it will be near impossible for you to not watch episode 2. I think it's the best first episode of, like, the most... It hooks you really fucking hard for a first episode. It's a better hooking first episode than almost anything I've ever seen. So Invincible Season 1, it was just so much hubbub, so much discussion, hype about it. It was hard to not watch that full season. But Season 2, just whatever they did with the release process, they shot themselves in the foot, because I don't feel motivated to watch it. Keep in mind, we've gone through this, right? There's so many shows, manga, etc., anime that are on my list to watch at the moment. I'm not going to move on over and try watching Invincible Season 2 when there's not even that much discussion about it. You know what I mean? If it's out of sight, out of mind, and it was really out of sight the entire time it was releasing, because there was just no one talking about it. I will say this really briefly on the Kendrick-Drake beef, which is just from my understanding, I do think that, because, I'm online, I'm on Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, etc. You're seeing stuff. I think Kendrick is obviously the better artist to me. Like, obviously, whatever. I just think that there's so much more to his music, from what little I've heard of both, right? I will say that it did seem as though it was predetermined from the beginning. Like, the internet had already decided that Kendrick wins. And it was kind of like anything... Because, like, I don't even know. I don't remember the full order of the songs, but it was also just like... Kendrick would put out some allegations, or like he'd say, you're like this, and everyone would be like, okay, Drake needs to respond in this next song or something, and then Drake deny it, and then Drake responds in the next song and like denies stuff, and then everybody's like, yo, he made a whole song denying that he's like a pedophile and stuff like that. It's like I think Drake did the things that people demanded him to do at each step of the way, and everybody was just like no matter what he did, it was kind of just scripted that like people would use that against him and be like, because I would literally see people be like Kendrick would put something out, and then people would be like, okay, Drake's on the clock, he's got to respond soon, and then Drake finally puts something out there like, he took so long. Okay, but Kendrick's allowed to wait however long he wants to wait before putting out another song. Like, nobody, like, people were like, okay, now Kendrick's on the clock, and everyone was like, nah, shut up, Kendrick's allowed to take as long as he wants. It was just that sort of set the tone for it from the very beginning, at least for me, from what I was seeing. And it was kind of just like, yeah, anything that Kendrick dropped, it was just like, all right, Drake's on the back foot, Drake's so fucked up now, whatever. And then anytime Drake would drop something that was like rebuttal, taking his own shots, people would kind of sweep that under the rug. Like, people aren't talking, like, Drake dropped some domestic violence allegations and stuff like that, but people aren't as interested in that. They're just not as interested. Nobody's saying that Kendrick needs to respond to that, but anything that Kendrick levels at Drake, it seems like people are like, no, you need to respond to that. And if you do respond to that, then that means you're admitting it and stuff. And it's just like, well, okay, so we all get it, right? It seems like everybody already decided who won from the beginning. Either way, the stuff Kendrick put out was better, but I think the game was rigged from the start, right? Was it not rigged? I think it was pretty much rigged. Yeah, and Kendrick did just kill him. Like, I agree, but it's also just like... It's a little unfair, I get. I came into it having no preference because I didn't like Drake from the beginning, and Kendrick, I knew nothing about his songs. I just knew that I'd heard a little bit, and it wasn't for me before. This was before. So for me, from the outside, I was like, okay, well, you can already kind of just see, like, as a neutral person who has very little investment in either thing, I was like, okay, you can already kind of just see the jury has decided before the trial has begun, right? That was the vibe that I was getting reading stuff online as this started. It had already been predetermined, right? That being said, what played out, it did seem like Kendrick was just better at the end. Like, his shots were just better at the end of the day. So it's fair to say that, yeah, he did, Kendrick won. That is fair to say. I definitely agree with that from the songs that I've heard. I haven't heard each song. But at the same time, it's also just like people are being super unfair online in the first place. So it's like, even if Kendrick had just put out, even if it was like a draw, everyone would have said that Kendrick won. Does that make sense? Kendrick did win, but people are acting as though every little thing that happened was just obviously like clearly one-sided, when it's like, no, there's some shit that he didn't respond to either, as far as I understand. And Drake did do the things that people wanted him to do, and people are still just like, but it doesn't matter, we're just still going to hold that against you. I'm like, it just seems a little unfair. But, it is what it is. It's not like sports is all subjective, right? Sports, somebody actually scores more points than the other person, It's, it's official. This is the people's champ type of competition, right? Okay. Let me catch up on the supers real quick, or members real quick. Jordan Taylor, thanks for being a Yonko team member for 19 months. One Piece theory. Akainu left an X scar on Luffy. X marks the spot. Akainu's telling us that Luffy was the One Piece all along. Man, I thought you were gonna say that Akainu scarring Luffy with the X means that it's setting in stone a future matchup between Luffy and Akainu, because leaving a scar on someone has a lot of significance. But the blacklist is unfair. Defending a child predator is unfair. No, that's not the point. I'm saying, like, the way it's spun is basically this, right? Drake's a child predator, right? Which is like, okay, well, Kendrick Lamar, isn't he an abusive husband or something like that? Doesn't he abuse his wife? At least these are the allegations that are being thrown, right? He's apparently not a good father, not around for his kids, right? Like, there are things being thrown around from both sides, but anything being thrown at Kendrick is being brushed under the rug. Anything being thrown at Drake is basically, it's just like, well, whatever Kendrick says, that's definitely true, right? That's just the way the internet has been going about it. It's just the way it has been, and I think these comments are a great example. I don't care about as for like, I'm talking purely from like the shots they're taking at each other, right? Like, I don't want to get into like what's worse, doing this or doing that or whatever, right? I'm just saying that this has been the narrative that is overall spun is basically, it seems like Kendrick can do no wrong, and anything that's being thrown at him, just sweep it under the rug. It's like, okay, Drake said that, but you have to respond to this, Drake, and Kendrick, you don't worry, just keep taking your shots. That's just kind of the vibe of it, is what I've been feeling. Again, I don't care too much about either of these artists. Well, that's not true, because I'm more of a Kendrick fan now, I guess, because I'm really fucking impressed with the album that I was listening to now, but I'm not like a long-term Kendrick fan or something like that. I just knew I never liked Drake's music, personally. Akash Panda, thanks a lot. Stronger crew, Rocks Pirates or End of Story Straw Hats? End of Story Straw Hats, come on now. End of Story Straw Hats, that's disrespectful to even suggest. Come on now. The Final Storm, thanks for the 5. Kid and Law new bounties, 5.6 billion after helping Luffy. Let me add one thing. End of Story Straw Hats do include like Grand Fleets and like all their resources and stuff. I think even if you're comparing just core crew to core crew, End of Story Straw Hats should take it. The Final Storm, thanks to the 5. Kid and Law new bounties, 5.6 billion after helping Luffy, Dory, and Brogy escape the Gorosei. Kid knocking one in the sea and Luffy and Law bypassing Regen. Okay, I don't think that Kid and Law are showing up here. I would say that I wouldn't be surprised if like Kid and Law got like 2 billion bounty increases for no fucking reason, for based off of shit that Luffy did, because that's the same thing that happened in Wano, right? Luffy does, 80% of the work. Kid and Law get 33% and 33% respectively of the credit. This time they're not even on the island, right? They're not even at Egghead. So I would love to see why the world government decides to give them a bounty increase this time, but I wouldn't be surprised if that shit happens. RPG 901, thanks to the 5. I'm glad you like Kendrick's music more, Morj. I'm a big fan of his music, and if you enjoyed A Pimp a Butterfly, I'd recommend Untitled Unmastered as well. So the only reason I listened to Pimp a Butterfly is because I really like Euphoria. I went to Reddit, and I went to the Kendrick Lamar subreddit, and I was like, I looked up basically what's Kendrick's best album, or like rate his albums or something like that. I just went through some posts. Pretty much everybody had 10 out of 10, Pimp a Butterfly at 10 out of 10. Most people had it as best or second best album. So I was like, okay, if this is what a lot of Kendrick Lamar fans seem to think, then I'll listen to this one. Right off the bat, like Wesley's Theory, I was like, oh shit, I have not heard rap artists like this before. That's all I'll say. And I'm not big into, like, this is all, I'm new to all this. I don't know that much in general, but there was something a lot more, like, to me, there felt like a lot more to that than other artists that I've heard besides. Because, like, again, people have pushed J. Cole on me. I've listened to a bit of J. Cole. I like it, but it's not something I listen to on my own time. I would definitely listen to Kendrick songs, I think, on my own time, personally. The Final Storm, thanks for the 2. Kendrick equals Shanks, Drake equals Kid, J. Cole equal Killer. No, don't. I'll say this. I think what J. Cole did, like, it does look good now, right? I think everybody's on board that J. Cole's decision to step out was the mature thing to do. It just makes sense because it's like these two guys are trying to kill each other. I also didn't get like why people were so upset in the first place when J. Cole stepped out, because everybody was like, no, it's not like, everybody was like, no, everybody said that it's not going to get that, like, because this is just how rap beefs generally go, right? Like when Nas and Jay-Z, as far as I understood, like when they were taking their shots at each other, like it gets really ugly and mean and personal, right? So this is just how it is. So I remember people were just like, when J. Cole dropped out, people were like, nah, nobody, like, this is not a big deal, dude. Like, he's over dramatizing it. We just wanted to see how good your pen game is or whatever. Like, you're bitching out, etc. Acting like it's not something that could potentially get, like, really, really, nasty. And it's like, but haven't other famous rap beefs in the past been, like, really fucking nasty as far as I know? Like, previous diss tracks and stuff like that, they get really, like, the whole point is to get really, really personal. And just make it ugly and try and humiliate the other person and ruin their career and legacy. I thought that's the point of them. So I was like, what do people mean, like, when they're saying, like, nah, J. Cole's overthink, like, he's just being like, just because you like and respect him, you can still like and respect them. You just have to go after them in like this rap beef or whatever. You can still like and respect them. It's like, I thought that's not how that works. I thought that once, like, at least from past stuff, from what little I know, once this shit starts popping off, then it's just like, no holds barred. You're really going after their legacy, their career, their character, etc. So I think it's pretty cool. I don't know. I think he did the mature thing. Gerard, thanks. How you late every time? You still don't know what time to be setting the streams? No, we are not doing it on purpose. No, I think I've mentioned this before. I set the stream times optimistically as to what time I would like to start the stream if everything in the rest of the day goes perfectly. But I have been better, let's not forget, at changing the stream time nowadays to better reflect, like if I realize I'm going to be late, I'll just change it to better reflect what time I'm probably going to show up at. Before, I would just let it sit there. So I'm trying to work on that. I've been working, I feel like that's not being acknowledged. I've been better at changing the stream time, right? I changed it today from 7:15 to 7:30. I was still a little bit late, but I've been better at that. Jordan Taylor, no, we covered this. Angel, thanks for the 5. Hey, Morj, Zoro can cut nothing. Would it be cool if he opened his blind eye to see Shiryu and cut him? So I'll say this. If Shiryu's Devil Fruit Awakening allows him to literally turn into nothing, that would be awesome. But if it's just invisibility, I don't get how it's a problem. Because you have observation haki. Unless his awakening allows him to be immune even to observation haki, then that's interesting. And then that would be a really, really good test for Zoro in terms of observation haki, which I think would be a good thing for him to have to get down before he fights Mihawk, The same way that, fighting King, he had to master Conqueror's haki, right? I think if he has to fight Shiryu and grow in terms of observation haki, I like those type of layering of steps. It's similar to Luffy's growth in terms of Luffy had to beat Katakuri, he had to improve his observation haki. Then against Kaido, he had to first master armament haki, like advanced armament, and then get down advanced conquerors. So that's how I'm seeing it. I think that, I don't know about blind, I don't know about literally opening his eye though. I think the eye, that ship has sailed. Dynamic, thanks for bringing Yonko to your member for 14 months. Hey Morj, my wife divorced me because the Wano vid didn't come out. I feel heartbroken and betrayed by you two. Maybe if you post it now, she'll take me back. I don't know how invested I am in you and your wife's situation. I feel like if your wife loves you for you, then she should not care as much about this Wano video. So, good riddance to her if that's why she left you. Let's get the stream likes to 100. Green Tomato, thanks for the 2. I like the will of D being the will of the drowned. Ooh, I don't know about that. I feel like there's not enough there. because I feel like Dawn and things like that, Dawn or even Demon or Devil, there's so much more written into the story around those ideas. Will of the Drowned, I guess it's like the will of those who have died. It's close to the will of the dead, essentially, the will of the past people who passed, like who died. I don't find that interesting personally. Der Boppler, thanks a lot. Red Line was floating in space like metal around Egghead. Lunarian had speed to get and resist to live. There also Paw Vivi moves Noah to all islands. Paw Vivi moving Noah around to all islands could be really cool, but the problem is that you have to move the Sea Kings and such as well. No, you don't, because there's Sea Kings everywhere, right? Shiroshi can command whoever. So that could be cool. Moving Noah around from... moving Noah around from island to island so people can get on. Then once everybody's on, the Sea Kings start carrying it so that they're the ones that are the oars, essentially, of the... Wait a second. I'm trying to think how oars might have played into everything. We still don't know what Onigashima is. I'm gonna stop thinking about oars for that. Something just went off in my head. I was like, that could be interesting. Anyway, Red Line was floating in space like metal around Egghead. And you think that Lunarians had speed to get and resist to live there? Okay, so you're saying Lunarians got up there and lived there, and then eventually Red Line was brought down to Earth? That could be interesting. I've never heard that idea before. I have my own idea of how the Red Line got to be what it is, but I'm going to leave that for a video. The Water God, thanks a lot. Hey Morj, what if instead of a huge continent, after the water level goes down, a few continents are formed, and each one of the royal families who allied with Luffy, who allied with the Straw Hats, each rule each one respectively? I think that I still imagine that there might be countries and such in the New World, but I feel like a more collaborative world or process would be better in the New World. Also, sorry, I feel like the setup I've got right now. So the whole setup had to be torn down. Let me shift a little bit. The whole setup I had to tear it down yesterday, or not yesterday, this weekend, because I had some people over, etc. So I had to move the desk and everything. I need to reset this up back to proper how it's supposed to be. Like, I don't know. Like, does Riku get to rule just one of the entire continents just because he's Riku? Does Dalton get to rule one of the entire? I mean, they're good people like Riku, Dalton, Vivi, obviously, but it does just seem a little bit. I don't know. I feel like a more collaborative world government should form afterwards. You know, because the concept of the world government isn't bad. Now Show, thanks for the 10. Drake and Kendrick is a lot like Rhaegar versus Robert Baratheon. Oh, interesting. Robert, even though he has faults, is the people's champ. People are tired of Drake, a Targaryen's reign. More hate him for anyway, at least. Yeah, no, I could see that. Yeah. That fits. That makes sense. Mega says, I've been better at moving the goalpost. Yeah, I don't know. I do think that, like, in a fair world, like fair judging, whatever, I think Kendrick wins either way. I also think just from listening, etc., he's better musician, better artist by leaps and bounds, right? And just comparing the way things came out. Also just the overall strategy of it, right? In that Kendrick clearly did have some inside info on Drake, right? So he came prepared. Like some insider in Drake's camp or whatever, he seems like he came prepared. Two, just being able to immediately counter like Family Matters with Meet the Grams. Like he was just... Like, you can look at it song by song and also just overall strategy. Kendrick is clearly just better. At the same time, I'm just saying that it's not that, like, you can take a step out and say that even though Kendrick was better, it was already predetermined from the beginning because the people were already, like, ready to anoint Kendrick as having slayed Drake. That's just the internet's vibe going into it, right? Like, the simplest example is just the simple fact that, like, as soon as Kendrick dropped, while Drake, his song, while Drake was literally on tour, like clearly doing other shit, people were like, Drake's on the clock. Once Drake drops, people are like, okay, so now is Kendrick on the clock? And everybody's like, no, Kendrick's not on the clock. He can put his shit out whenever the fuck he wants. It's like, he's the one that fucking started it. So if anything, like Drake gets taken by surprise. The dude that initiated should have more time pressure on him than the dude that got, essentially... essentially hit with a shock of like, oh fuck, like we're in a battle now, you know. That's my 2 cents, which is basically like Kendrick, I don't think came out clean, but it's going to look like he came out clean because everybody's more so interested. Like it was written in stone from the beginning that like, all right, Kendrick, you're the victor, and Drake, you suck. So anything that gets thrown at you is going to stick. Anything that gets thrown at Kendrick, it's just we don't care. The goalposts were always going to be moved from the beginning. That being said, again, in a vacuum, you ignore all of the biases, etc. It is just clear like Kendrick outplayed him at every turn. Songs are better. He's much more talented, and his like just the shots, everything was better, right? Yeah. So both things can be true though. It's not that black and white. Lucky Man, thanks for being a Pirate King to your member for 8 months. How and when do you think we'll learn about Luffy's true dream? Void Sentry flashback, Roger flashback, Luffy saying it on screen, who he'll say it to. He already told the important people, Straw Hat, Sabo, and Shanks. I felt like this arc we would learn Luffy's dream because the arc begins with Luffy saying it. And this Egghead Island, the arc really is heavily, like one of the big themes is dreams. Egghead Island is an arc that is heavily about dreams. Like that is one of its primary themes. So learning Luffy's dream at the end of this arc, it feels fitting to me. I just don't know how the context in which it's going to come out because it seems like so many other things are happening right now. Dimian Wright, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 9 months. I agree, Morj. Do people really think Oda had Akainu scar Luffy just for fun? Do they really want Sabo to beat him from a narrative standpoint? I just don't get Sabo beating him from a narrative, because it's just, one, Sabo's way too weak, but you can always get power-ups, right? You can get power-ups, right? So let's say Sabo gets enough power-ups. That's one, but like, that's probably the least important thing in the grand scheme of things. To me, it's more just like, the story for Luffy and Akainu is so powerful, and it's the most powerful, most intense moment of Luffy's life. Everything, it's the moment that shattered him. Like, Luffy is a character that is usually not written like a character. He's more so like a human, right? He's more so written, let's say, like a character, right? Like a very, he's not written like a normal realistic person with, we never get insight into his thoughts and like his own personal, like a lot of it is very much more, we always get to read Luffy from a distance, right? He's a symbol more than anything. He's a personification of a concept, right? He's not written like as he's kind of a black box in terms of his own personal internal world and everything like that, right? And that's why in most arcs he is more so a force of nature coming through to save the people of the kingdom, the island, whatever it may be, save some new people that he met. And we don't usually delve too much into Luffy's own personal story in that sense. We're delving into the story of the people around him and then him coming through to save them, right? So the one time in the story that it truly, truly is about Luffy and about a personal conflict that goes deep to him and what he believes about in himself and his responsibilities and what he needs to do, the burdens that he's taken on, his brother, like all of that, right? All of that coming to a head in Marineford. Like that is the storyline that was truly about Luffy as a character. And him learning lessons and his limitations and what he actually needs to become, those sort of things. And it all is sealed with Akainu killing Ace in front of him, Luffy the pirate fighting for freedom, etc. The person that takes his brother from him is the embodiment of this false idea of justice, absolute justice. The head of the Marines, Akainu, right? The perfect contrast to the Pirate King, because pirates and Marines, that's the contrast, right? All of that coming to a head right there with Akainu killing Ace and then scarring Luffy, like symbolically scarring him from this whole event and what Akainu took from him. Like, there's so much power to that story. There's more power to that story than Luffy versus Blackbeard, I would argue. Like, there's more personal stuff built in there than Luffy versus Blackbeard. And again, people forget this. I can literally still pull up the panels of Luffy hearing Akainu's name post-time skip And he gets angry. Like, just hearing Akainu's name makes Luffy angry and makes him clutch the scar on his chest. He doesn't even do that for Blackbeard. Luffy hates Akainu more than he hates Blackbeard. For those of you who have like, that is canonical to the story. You can go find more evidence of Luffy hating Akainu more than he hates Blackbeard. Luffy doesn't have the same reaction to Blackbeard's name as he has to Akainu. There's only one person that gets that reaction out of Luffy, and it is Akainu. Okay? So there's so much power to that story, and for Luffy to finally be able to come back and actually fight Akainu on even footing and break everything that Akainu stands for and what the Marines, like the flawed side of the Marines, what they've stood for from the beginning of the story. Like, there's so much more power to that. The Pirate King versus the Fleet Admiral, etc. There's nothing to Luffy and Sabo's story. Sabo and Akainu's story. There's nothing there, really. It's like the entire Marineford incident happens, and then after the fact, Oda invents, it's like an Uta type character, right? I'm not saying Sabo's the same as Uta, because we did, like, you do get a soft little slip in of the Three Brothers Cups and stuff like that. That's fine, but it would be like if finding out, you know, it's essentially like Uta being written in the story, and it's like, Uta, she was part of Luffy's past, she's gonna fight Akainu because she really loved Ace too, you know? It's like, this is so meaningless. There's no weight to it. It's just the dramatic event that sets this character up as the villain, that creates him as an obstacle in the main character's story, that leaves its mark on the reader, on the entire narrative structure of the story, etc., that positions the dynamic between these two characters. All of that happens, and then after the fact, you write in a character that was essentially non-existent beforehand into the story, and like, you give them some like very they loved Ace too, but they got amnesia, so they've just been out of the story, but they also don't like the world government. Oh, and they have like Ace's fire fruit. Now it's very surface level, like very shallow writing to kind of set. There's no all of the actual storytelling, right? The storytelling of Marineford that builds up the idea of Luffy versus Ace and why that's so powerful, right? Or sorry, Luffy versus Akainu, why that's so powerful. It's built on dramatic storytelling. Sabo versus Akainu, there's no dramatic storytelling there. It's on paper, right? It's on paper, it makes sense. It's like, well, we want Sabo to fight someone, and Sabo, technically, he does probably also feel like really angry about Akainu killing Ace, right? Because this is stuff that's being written in after the fact. And he definitely would have done something about it, but he just had amnesia, so he couldn't be there. So he didn't experience the incident, but, you know, technically he is really, we understand why he should be really mad. It's just, there's no real substance to it, but on paper it makes sense, so that's why I don't really like it. I would argue that the thing that I believe is more likely, that I would hope would actually happen, is this, which is that Akainu does fight Sabo. Much like Ace versus Akainu, Sabo loses, Akainu is going to kill Sabo, and this time Luffy's able to step in and save his brother. I think that is a large part of why the so many parallels are being, Oda's writing Sabo and Ace to have so many parallels, right? I personally think that's more likely to me, that at the end of the day, Akainu is going to kill Sabo, and then this time Luffy's able to save his brother. A lot was made of Luffy's past, of basically the idea that he always had to be protected by his brothers, both Ace and Sabo. I think we will definitely hit a point in the story where Luffy gets to be the one protecting his brother in his, like, instead. And I think paralleling the Ace Akainu incident with Akainu Sabo, so that Luffy gets to finally fight Akainu and kind of right the wrongs of the past and where he failed, his biggest failure in the past, I think that is much more dramatically powerful than Sabo getting to fight Akainu just because, you know? That's my thoughts. But at the same time, that's largely based on what I would like to see happen. I think that Sabo fighting Akainu just feels very shallow. It's just it just does. Whereas Luffy versus Akainu is like the most emotionally powerful fight that Luffy could ever have. Ali H, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 18 months. Morj, how are you liking the new place? Also, do you think Elbaf will be a Fishman Island situation and we won't get there for a while? Okay, so Fishman Island was its own exception. Oh, let me mention the place first real quick. I love my new place. I really, really love my new apartment. I did do a housewarming yesterday, which is why the background is maybe a little bit, not yesterday, Saturday. Time flies. Background is a little bit, got more stuff. That will be cleared out. That'll be cleared out. Tomorrow's cleaning day, but today just no time. And Sunday, just no cleaning Sunday. It's a Sunday. But I really love the new place. Thank you for asking. Do I think Elbaf will be a Fishman Island situation and we won't get there for a while? Fishman Island was its own exception, because Fishman Island, it was like, it was supposed to be the next arc after Sabaody, and then we waited. We had to wait 100-ish chapters to get to Fishman Island, right? 100 chapters. That's actually not as long as I thought. That's not that big of a delay. I mean, in story it was 2 years, but in real life, 100 chapters in the grand scheme of things, not the biggest delay. I don't think that's the case with Elbaf. I think that Elbaf, because the giants are here, right? The escorts to Elbaf are here. And Oda is said it. We've already gotten a glimpse of Elbaf with Shanks and Kid, their shit going down in Elbaf. So I think that things are just being set up for Elbaf to be the next arc. And the difference is that, unlike in Fishman Island, where the story was still fresh, right? We're still early on. We don't know how long the whole story is going to be. We are now in the final saga. So we do need to get to Elbaf sooner than later, just so that we can get there and actually have the stuff happen there. Okay. Moving on. JWP says break next week, lol. The breaks are fucking killing me, man. This is insane. Like, this is just... Because we have a chapter this week, and then another break next week. I don't even know what to say. It's a lot. It is a lot. Manny, thanks for the 5. Hey, Morj, this is the first time I've heard you mention music artists. What are some of your favorite artists/albums? Here's the thing. This is a weird answer. I really, really, really don't like. So for me, I think in general, I almost never. There's very few artists that I like multiple songs of them. It's just a thing. I don't know. And that's not me trying to say I have like crazy special music taste. It's the other. I don't know what my music taste is. I think generally what I like music-wise. I've used Spotify to discover music in general, and so I'll like a song, gets added to my general playlist, and then if I really like certain songs, I will try and find other songs by the artist to see if I like them, and that's almost never been the case. If you look at my whole Spotify general playlist, there are very, very few repeat songs by the same artist. I don't know why that is. It just is the way it is. It just is the way it is. In terms of full albums, I have tried listening to full albums of art. I don't think, I don't know. One of the only times I've ever had to actually sit down and listen to back-to-back-to-back albums was with Tool, and that was with my friend a few years ago who passed away when I was trying to get him into One Piece. He had me listen to full Tool albums while I had him read certain amounts of One Piece chapters. But outside of that, I'm not generally sitting down to listen to full albums. The only reason I did it recently with Kendrick was because I had a decently long car ride, and I was like, let me get a full concept of what his music is like, so I put on To Pimp a Butterfly. And I did enjoy that. I did definitely enjoy that. But I think one of the reasons I don't listen to full albums is because, and I know music lovers, aficionados, etc., listening to full albums is what you have to do. That's the right way to do it, etc. You get the full concept of what the artist is trying to do. I get that, right? The reason I don't listen to full albums is because more often than not, I will only like a few songs on a given album. That's just the way it is. I will be okay with most songs on on a really good artist album or something like that, probably. But I will only really like a few good songs. A few songs that I like, right? So for me to sit down and listen to a full album, it's the right way to go about it, and I would probably appreciate certain songs more than I otherwise would. But usually when I'm trying to find songs that I like, I will skip after the first, if I'm not digging it after the first, 30, 45 seconds to a minute or something, I'm on to the next song, right? That's just how I go through Spotify. I don't give songs that much breathing room. So that's why I'm not the type of person to sit down and listen to a full album, because that's not, if I'm listening to a song in there that I don't like, I'm committing to listening to that full 4-minute song, and then the next 4-minute song, and then the next 4-minute song. It's the right way to do it. I understand, appreciating music, etc., yada yada, but that's just not me when it comes to music. I listen to a bit of a song. If I like it, listen to it more, maybe add it to a playlist, otherwise skip. That's just the way it is. Nerve AMV Maker, thanks for the 10. Zoro bounty will drop to below 300 million since he couldn't beat Lucci, which gave Luffy his... Zoro's bounty will drop to below... Okay, hold on, let's process this. Zoro's bounty will drop to below 300 million since he could not beat Lucci, which gave Luffy his 300 million bounty. Jinbei's bounty will drop to the year's... Jinbei's bounty will drop to the yearly salary of a UPS warehouse worker. Have we ever seen a bounty reduction in One Piece? Because that's hilarious. I don't think we've ever seen that. Caleb Brown, thanks for the 5. Part 1. I was watching your amazing video last week. Thank you. I hope if you have not checked it out, watch last week's video. I think it really breaks down a lot of what you can expect in the end of One Piece, and I think that there's almost no... At least from comments, I don't see anybody bringing up holes with the theory. Like, at least from any comments. All I'm seeing is basically people saying that it's a good theory, that things click, etc. I don't see any big gaping holes that anybody has mentioned. I think Luffy's dream... okay, Caleb Brown continues, I thought of an idea. I think Luffy's dream is to have everyone in the world in his crew or be his nakama. So it has So actually, funnily enough, this isn't even me. This is my editor brought up this after he watched that video, like after he listened to the whole video. And he brought up something that I do think could very much be Luffy's dream. And it's related to what you just mentioned. And what ship will everyone be on by the end? And who would be the captain of such a ship? I don't know, but it sounds nice. Thoughts? Question mark. I'll say that there's a theory that we want to put out. Again, this is my editor's idea, actually, not mine. But, I'll be building off of that. There's a full theory that we want to put out based on Luffy's dream that does connect basically to what we just went through with what you just referenced with Noah. Because I love theories where once you put them out, then it allows other things in the story to stack on and fit as well, right? Some people have mentioned a giant party, right? I think that was Arthur's idea or something like that. Well, everybody being on the same ship would allow for a giant party to happen, right? I like when there's certain theories that don't just solve everything that the theory is talking about, but they open the door to more pieces of the story to connect as well. Black Lightning, thanks for the 5. Hey, I just noticed that Ashra are enemies of the gods, so what are the odds Oda reveals Zoro's a D in the upcoming novel? What are the odds that Oda reveals that? I don't want to... I really fucking don't want Zoro to be a D. Do you guys remember Naruto where, like, by the end of Naruto, if you weren't born from... This isn't, like, one of those hard work versus talent things. I don't care enough about Naruto's themes to get into that. And, like, I don't have good enough recall of Naruto's, like, details to make a good argument about that either way. This is just a personal preference thing. Personal preference, right? I did not like that by the end of the story, the only way that you could be a strong character is if you were born from, like... if you were an incarnation of Indra and Ashura, or had some special eye jutsu, you know? Like, I think that's the only two ways that characters could be strong by the end of the story. Right? Unless you were fucking like Minato. That's why Minato is so cool. One of the reasons. But, I don't know. Like, even Kakashi. I always thought this was really lame. I was like, Kakashi's the most carried ninja in the history of Naruto. Right? Because Kakashi's a cool character, but by the end of the story, it's just like, okay, he's super broke for... Like, so much of what made him really strong towards the end of the story was that he just had this eye that was a broken eye. And then to get him to, like, end a story level, like, where he can compete with the top tiers, like Kaguya and such, he was just gifted another one of those broke-ass eyes. And then he loses them both, and it's just like, well, how strong is Kakashi now? Like, so much of this talented genius, whatever... Like, Kakashi just kind of... Isn't he ass without the eyes? You know? Isn't he just ass without the eyes? How many gates would a guy need to beat Kakashi? Like, a gate and a half? I don't know. I don't remember Naruto power scaling that well. But, like, I just didn't like that so many characters, by the end of the story, was just... You need to be a reincarnation or have a fucking special eye. And I'm just like... Why? Why write it like this way? I just don't get it. Because Naruto started off... I think the reason I dislike that is because one of my favorite things about Naruto early on was the diversity of abilities and the type of ninjutsu you could have, and the different sources of power that people could have. Like, yeah, it was cool early on. Sasuke had the Sharingan, and then Neji had the Byakugan. But then as we're learning, it's like, okay, Gaara's got this sand thing going on, and Naruto's got his chakra and everything like that. Rock Lee, he just works out a bunch, and you're just seeing all these different styles and types of ninjutsu, and then you're learning that each clan has their own special techniques and everything, like the shadow technique or the mind transfer techniques and everything. I really love that, and then over the course of the story, it just pares down a lot to only a few things really mattering. In One Piece, it does feel like the D-Tribe members are generally the strongest batch of characters, But at the very least, I'm cool with the fact that it's more so that there's not like a singular defining ability that is exclusive to D-Tribe members, right? It's just D-Tribe members happen to be pretty strong, you know? They just happen to be pretty fucking strong, you know? Like, I think that's okay, because that's just, this is a family or tribe or whatever that's through the generations. It's just got a natural tendency to be strong, right? Like, Kaido's really fucking strong. Kaido's not a D, right? And then he has a kid, Yamato, and Yamato's really strong, and we're like, yeah, that fucking makes sense. Like, Yamato's Kaido's kid. It just makes sense that this family tree continues to be strong, you know? Big Mom's got kids, like Katakuri. Katakuri's really strong. It feels okay. So it's like, okay, Luffy's a D. Like, the D tribe just throughout history, yeah, they're more likely to have strong characters than not. So I'm okay with that, but I also largely only okay with that because we still are getting plenty of strong characters who aren't Ds. If we start drifting towards, you know, every strong character being a D, like, we've still got, like, Shanks, Mihawk, these characters who are not Will of D characters. I like that they exist and are at the top of the One Piece world. I hope that Zoro joins that crowd. I would hate to learn that they're also D-Tribe members, because I think we're just getting to a point where they're kind of oversaturating the game. Anyway, where are we at? Okay. Where are we at? People saying Akainu's too weak. I would agree that Akainu from pre-time... If Akainu is still at the same level that he was when he fought Aokiji, if he's still at the same level of, like, okay, 10 days to beat Aokiji, or the level of, like, okay, Marineford Whitebeard, he go into toe with Marineford Whitebeard, yes, Luffy would mop the floor with him. He would mop the floor with that dude. The same way, like, it would not be that much harder than him beating Kizaru. Akainu should be stronger than Kizaru, but the gap between Luffy and Kizaru, from what we last saw, is fucking gigantic. It's absurd. Luffy can low diff Kizaru at this point. Unless you are a hardcore... like, hardcore... Like, no, there's no level of cope you could say to argue that Luffy doesn't just stomp Kizaru as soon as he tries nowadays, right? Akainu... My only argument for Akainu and Luffy being a good fight is basically... I agree that Akainu from back then cannot beat Luffy now, right? Or not even give him, like, an extreme diff fight or something like we would hope. But Conqueror's Haki exists, and Akainu is the perfect template for a Conqueror's Haki user. If Akainu has awakened Advanced Conqueror's Haki, say through his fight with Aokiji, then we have a very different character at the end of the story that we're looking at. I don't think that that's absurd to say that, yeah, Akainu could still have gotten stronger, because we kind of expect that, right? With certain characters, certain villains in particular. Blackbeard, we expect that he will be stronger than what we've seen so far of him by the end of the story. I think it's entirely possible that Akainu could have awakened Advanced Conqueror's Haki late in the story. Age is not so much of a big factor in Conqueror's Haki. Like, it does matter. But I think it's more so where you are in life when Conqueror's Haki presents itself. Because, like, Ace got Conqueror's Haki when he was a kid. Why did Ace get Conqueror's Haki when he was a kid? Because Ace, at that point in time, had the responsibility... Like, he was walking... He was the leader of that trio, and he kind of took it upon himself to be the brave one to hold down the fort, protect his brothers, take on overwhelmingly strong opponents himself, and not back down. And that's what allowed his Conqueror's Haki to bloom so early on. Luffy was always in this little brother mindset for so long, and even when he first started getting on his crew, like people on his crew, it really was a lot of, you know, we're buddy-buddy, we're friends, etc. We look out for each other. You look at when Luffy developed Conqueror's Haki, it was shortly after the events of, like, Enies Lobby. Shortly after the events of, like, when Luffy's having to come into his own really as a captain and a leader, and really taking that responsibility of, like, I'm not going to back down and run. I have to be able to stop anybody that we face. I have to be able to protect everybody that's behind me, right? Really, those were a lot of the realizations that he had from coming out of Marineford, right? This is all the time that Marineford is happening and Luffy's having these lessons that he's learning. It's the same coming off the back of Enies Lobby. This is the time that his Conqueror's Haki is starting to develop, right? You just look at when characters develop Conqueror's Haki, and a lot of it is based on just them having to, like, what point in their lives do they happen to have the necessary realizations that allows them to develop Conqueror's Haki. With Akainu, for the longest time, you know, he's working under the world government, he's following orders, absolute justice, etc. And now we see him at a point in his life where he's fighting for he wants to lead. He wants to be in charge of the world government. He wants to take over as fleet admiral. He's fighting Aokiji to carry out his ideals, right? We also see Akainu arguing against the Gorosei. The way that the world government works doesn't jive with the way that Akainu, his vision for the world government. I think if any character is likely to have developed Conqueror's Haki between pre-time skip and the events that we have today, I think Akainu would be the golden, the gold standard of what you would think a character who could develop Conqueror's Haki would be, right? The trajectory that he would be on. So that's my thoughts on that. Thomas Chambers, thanks for the 5. Do you think Mihawk lost his Conqueror's Haki when he became the strongest? I think it makes sense considering he wants Zoro to be able to duel him. No, definitely not. I don't think you lose because the Conqueror's Haki is what makes you the strongest, right? If Mihawk lost his Conqueror's Haki as soon as he became the strongest, well then he would wouldn't some swordsman just come along and beat him right away afterwards? Because it's like, well, this dude doesn't even have it. Wouldn't Shanks just beat him right afterwards, right? If Mihawk doesn't have his advanced Conqueror's Haki anymore, fuck, Mihawk versus Vista is making a lot more sense. It's just some dudes with with basic armament Haki going at it. No, but seriously, I don't think that Mihawk lost his Conqueror's Haki. Him wanting Zoro to be able to duel him, that's not... I don't think that means any... that's wanting the challenge, and it's okay to want... Mihawk's had his reign as the world's strongest swordsman. At a certain point, it's fine to want a successor in some sense, or to want somebody to challenge you at the very least. And so that's why I like Zoro. I don't think the need to be the strongest... I don't think Shanks... Shanks we know has extremely strong Conqueror's Haki. Shanks also wants Luffy to surpass him one day. As a pirate, as a man, whatever, right? That's not... I don't think wanting to be... I don't think wanting somebody to come up and surpass you disqualifies you from having Conqueror's Haki. The Water God, thanks for the 10. I think the Sabo versus Akainu fight is kind of likely because of Akainu saying that his fruit is superior to the flame fruit, and Sabo overpowering him would mean that Ace's inherited will won in a way. But so I think that this is one of the things that this is the key. So the Sabo having the flame fruit and the fire versus magma thing, that's the number one argument that I most frequently see with Sabo for fighting Akainu. And again, maybe Sabo fights Akainu, maybe Sabo beats Akainu. That's totally possible. But I do think a lot of it comes from carryover Ace fandom and people focusing in on because Ace was super popular and everybody loved Ace's ability. To hear that Ace loses to this guy Akainu who we don't like, and that Akainu's power is just better than Ace's, I think that's something that to this date has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. So I think people are more so just focused in on the idea that they wanted Ace to have won that fight than the actual narrative being about what it means for Luffy, the main character, right? Luffy is the one that inherits Ace's will, first of all, right? Sabo does as well to a degree, because, taking Ace's fruit, that's also inherit. Multiple characters can inherit Ace's will. I know some people even say that Yamato inherited Ace's will based off of their 4-minute conversation or whatever. But yeah, multiple characters can inherit characters' will, right? But it's made very clear that Luffy inherits Ace's will, right? That's first and foremost, and he's the main character, right? Number 2, just because people want Ace to have won that fight and would like to see a rematch in a sense and be like, okay, well, Sabo will fight Akainu, and Sabo, using Ace's abilities, will prove that fire beats magma or something. It's I don't think the story is about proving that fire beats magma or that you can beat fire with magma. I think that is very, 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 very low in the order of importance of things that whole Akainu Ace Luffy situation left us with. Right? I think way more important is how it affected Luffy, what that failure meant for Luffy, how Akainu scarred him both emotionally, psychologically, and physically, right? And what Akainu now represents in the story to Luffy, and what he represents symbolically in the story as the fleet admiral of the Marines, and what that represents in contrast to the pirate world and what they represent. I think there's so much more there than the idea that, okay, so what this boils down to is fire lost to magma, and by the end of the story, we need to symbolically see fire defeating magma. I don't think that matters that much. I don't think Ace getting a symbolic rematch with Akainu is what matters, because Ace versus Akainu was never really the thing. Akainu just happened to be the person that killed Ace. Akainu and Luffy, that's the thing that really matters there. Because what Akainu represents is the total contrast of what Luffy represents, and what Akainu did to Luffy, and what he showed to Luffy, and how he marked Luffy permanently and changed Luffy permanently. That's what really matters at the end of the day. Marcel Beans, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 4 months. Zoro's character in Wano fumbled. Frankie's character in Egghead fumbled. Usopp and Elbaf will be fumbled. Love Oda, but let's be real here, because the last moment for Usopp's growth and strength was Dressrosa. I don't agree. Maybe I'm being too optimistic, but I strongly believe that the difference is that with Frankie and Egghead, there was never anything beforehand that hardcore suggested that Frankie should be there's some storyline for Frankie in Egghead. With Zoro and Wano, there were some hints beforehand, like Zoro talking about, like, I'll round up the samurai in Wano. But aside from that, it's more so just, we're going into it with the reader making, assumptions that, well, Zoro's a swordsman, it's the land of swordsmen. Zoro should get a really good storyline in Wano. With Zoro, at the very least, we did get a lot of screen time of him in Wano, but not actual coherent storytelling where the plot lines that he's going through come together. So I do agree Zoro's storyline was fumbled in Wano, but I don't think that there was anything going into Wano that even suggested what exactly his storyline would necessarily be outside of I'll round up the samurai. Like that, it's a very thin setup, right? You can say that once we're in the arc and we're getting a lot of Zoro writing, that stuff is messy. But that's different than heading into the arc being like, Zoro is a swordsman, Wano's the land of swordsmen, therefore Zoro has to, like Oda is telling us that Zoro will get a big storyline in Wano. Oda never really told us that heading in. Frankie and Egghead, same thing. It's like we show up at Egghead, we're like, oh, this is Vegapunk's island. Frankie likes Vegapunk a lot. Frankie knows a lot. He trained on Vegapunk's island. Therefore, Oda is telling us that this will be a really big storyline for Frankie. Oda technically never did that. Like, he never told us, he never did anything to suggest that this needs to be a really important storyline for Frankie. It's just really fucking bizarre that it isn't, because it's like, Oda must essentially view Frankie as a character as basically totally, I don't know, like totally pointless if he views this as just like a coincidence that we happen to be on Vegapunk's island, and that doesn't necessarily mean that anything interesting should happen for Frankie's storyline. But if we're being entirely fair, Oda never led us into the arc at any point suggesting that something significant needs to happen for Frankie here. Okay? Usopp and Elbaf is different, because with Usopp and Elbaf, unlike Zoro and Wano and Frankie and Egghead, Usopp has been talking and he himself, like Oda the author, has been signposting over and over how important Usopp views Elbaf to be for himself, for his growth, for the culmination of his ideal image of himself as a brave warrior of the sea. That has happened since Little Garden. That has happened at Enies Lobby with Usopp and Oimo and Kashi. Remember, Oimo and Kashi are only fucking here holding down Venus Juro and everything like that because Usopp is the one that inspired them, right? Usopp's the one that inspired them and told them what's up. He sent them back to Elbaf. They went there. They picked up Dorian Bro. Like, this is all happening because of Usopp, right? Usopp's been talking about Elbaf throughout the New World. It's just Usopp himself. Oda has had the character write and signpost many times that Elbaf is going to be important for him. Like, it's necessary for him as a character to go to Elbaf and complete his journey in a sense. Okay, so I don't view Zoro and Wano and Frankie and Egghead as proof that Usopp will get nothing in Elbaf. I view it more so as, okay, those were bad, but we can sweep those under the rug because technically the author didn't directly set up anything for these characters there. When Oda directly sets up well in advance that, like, hey, this is going to be important for me as a character, he usually ends up delivering on that, I think, in the past, as far as I remember. So, we gotta wait and see. Ice96, thanks for the 5. I'm neutral on Sabo killing Akainu. However, there's arguments about Sabo awakening. Wouldn't an awakened magma fruit still be stronger than an awakened flare? I don't know, man. Yeah, maybe. The awakened stuff, like, I have no idea with Sabo and, I'm just not that interested in the Sabo, like, the magma fire thing. I do think it's a lot of carryover from just resentment's the wrong word because I don't want to trivialize, but like I do think a lot of readers who loved Ace, I loved Ace as well, but it does rub people the wrong way that Ace lost to Akainu because people did not want Ace. Like, Akainu's a giant asshole, at least that arc he was. I like Akainu as a character, by the way, but Akainu was being a giant asshole, and like we like Ace, and Ace was up till now this really cool character who, the fire fruit is really strong. Like, you can send Smoker packing easily. This was back when Smoker was kind of the boogeyman for Luffy, right? Akainu put up a great fight against Blackbeard, who had at the time what seemed like the strongest devil fruit. Ace put up a great fight against Blackbeard, who at the time had the strongest devil fruit that we could kind of tell. Ace stopped Aokiji. Like, Ace was Ace. Like, literally, his name matches what he represented in the story. He was the ace in the story. He was like this cool dude who could kind of pull off whatever, and he had a really cool ability. So for this, like, Akainu, who's this, like, stuffy, middle-aged old dude with a bunch of, like, rigid ideals and stuff, and generally an asshole, to come in with his magma fruit, and, magma is also not that cool. Like, it's a very powerful ability, but it's also, like, this weird, sloppy, drippy substance, right? It's not cool like fire. A lot of people just didn't like Ace losing to Akainu like that, and the way he lost to Akainu, there was no real, like, it was just straight up spelled out. It's like, my ability is a better version of your ability. And I think a lot of people didn't like that because it just felt very absolute that, oh man, Ace is just no match for Akainu. This kind of sucks. So I think a lot of people do want to see, like, a lot of Ace fans latched onto Sabo when Sabo was introduced, because now it's like, we get Backup Ace. Backup Ace is great. And Backup Ace gets Ace's ability? Oh, we love Backup Ace. Okay, we want Backup Ace to beat Akainu, because then that'll fix basically what happened in Marineford, which was BS. And I do think that there is some degree of sentiment coming from there. Ali H, thanks a lot. What major storylines do you think were given bad ends? Major storylines do I think were given bad ends? So if Kid just went down the way he went down, I think he got a bad ending. I think Big Mom, as a character, got a terrible ending, personally. Not just because I think Law and Kid are frauds, but because I just feel like her storyline ultimately didn't really matter. I feel like when Kaido was defeated, at least his storyline, like the direction, the trajectory of his character, you could kind of see it, right? With Big Mom, it felt like a lot of it was just, she just needed like a Yonko who was not treated with respect to her own character storyline, but rather just an obstacle to be moved around, At the end of the day, she never even really, like, we had so much build up to her and Luffy throughout Whole Cake Island, and then once she was moved over to Wano, she said 2 words to Luffy or something like that. Like, let's be real, Katakuri as a character was treated, like, his Big Mom's son, who was introduced, like, 70% of the way through the arc, his whole storyline from start to finish and his defeat to Luffy was just treated with a lot more respect for the character than Big Mom, the main boss herself. For her, it was, like, I ultimately feel like Big Mom was shipped off over to Wano kind of just so that Kid and Law had a good fight, like a good character to beat. It was kind of like, okay, Kid and Law, I'm representing them as the 2 younger generation. I need them to get a good win. We'll have them beat Big Mom, because I don't think her storyline mattered that much in the end. It's kind of like Kaido losing to Luffy. It's still like his storyline. It still treats his character with respect overall, right? You see the whole Wano storyline, and you can see Kaido's storyline within it, and how he's defeated, and why it was important for him to lose Luffy, etc. With Big Mom, it's kind of just like she's just a Yonko that she just needs to be a strong. Like, after Whole Cake ends, it's like, okay, well, we just need a strong character for Kid and Law to beat. Let's move this Yonko over from the previous arc, kind of stuff her into this arc. Do her motivations or anything like that, or storylines in this arc matter much at all? No. She just needs to lose to Kid and Law. I'd say the biggest thing with that, basically, is you can kind of she has a conversation with Perospero, where Perosporo's like, why are you teaming up with Kaido? Like, what's going on here? She's like, oh, you'll see. Like, you have to trust me on this or whatever. Like, you kind of assume that Big Mom is still her own independent force, and that there's something coming together there that will close out her character well, and like the entire past that we've gotten with her, the trajectory she's been on, the motivation she has, etc. But it's kind of just like she was just moved into the arc to just lose to Kid and Law without much respect to her story, That's off the top of my head, but I'm trying to think major storylines. I think so far Oda has been really good with major storylines. I think if we look at the Wano arc, it's literally a shit ton of minor storylines that go nowhere. Like, literally, the Wano arc is hilarious in that you can go to the first page of the Wano arc, like literally the first opening page of the Wano arc, chapter 908, 909 or something like that. I think 909. The very first scene is Nekomamushi and Marco talking, and Marco saying, I can't go to Wano. I just can't go to Wano, but I have an important message for Luffy. Spoilers, there is no important message for Luffy. The message is, I'm coming to Wano. So, like, that's just kind of what the whole, like, within the context of the Wano arc, there's a million just, like, random little storylines that kind of go nowhere. Especially in the Onigashima section, there's a dozen new things that pop up in a chapter, and then like six out of those 12 will go nowhere or be resolved off screen or something like that, right? So minor storylines, I think, is where Oda kind of fumbles once in a while. But in terms of major storylines, I think Oda's, like, in terms of handling a large spectrum of major long-running storylines, I think Oda's, like, the best mangaka I've ever seen at that, you know? Boppler, thanks for the 2. How will the world be habitable again after the flood? I think a lot of people will be building a new world. So if you look at a common theme in One Piece, right? Let me share real quick. Make sure. Hold on. Hope the screen shares properly. I still got to fix the setup from when I took it down this weekend. But yeah, if you look at, like, so I view Dressrosa as very similar in terms of what we could maybe expect, you know? So a lot of it is like Dressrosa, Skypiea, similar, right? Can you guys see this? I don't know if it is sharing properly. Okay, so Dressrosa, like the chapter is literally called Rubble, right? First of all, I don't know if you've seen the previous video. The previous video explains that basically, I think the world will flood, Luffy defeats Imu, flood will drain. You have to watch the video to get the details of why that will happen. Flood goes down. Flood goes down. What we are left with is a giant world, a giant mass of land in One Piece. That's what the One Piece is, okay? Now, the idea is like, yeah, the world will have been flooded, so doesn't the world look really shitty even after the water goes down? That's okay. I think a large part of the point in One Piece in many arcs is that, like, it's okay if everything goes to shit, as long as the people are still alive, we can rebuild. So this chapter is literally called Rubble. So if you're reading this chapter, one of the big things that's talked about, like kind of the entire point, the scene you're witnessing beyond the cage is not just a diced-up town, but a place devoid of manipulation, a land of freedom. The birdcage is gone. That's what matters at the end of the day. Like, the chapter is called Rubble, but what they're celebrating is basically that even amidst, it's not always, okay, read this. Everybody read this. Put your reading glasses on. This explains it, right? It is not always a tragic event when a kingdom falls into ruin. On this day, the citizens of Dressrosa rejoiced and wept amid the rubble. Okay? That's one of the key ideas of One Piece, that, like, it's okay. It's one of the things that actually gives Luffy license, like Oda kind of gives Luffy license to fuck shit up at the end of the day. Because the idea is that as long as the land is freed at the end of the day, we can rebuild. And part of the joy of rebuilding the new kingdom or whatever is in the sense that, well, we can leave a lot of the old memories of the old world behind because now we've got something much better. Where'd my mouse go? Okay. Similar idea in, like, Skypiea. In Skypiea, they don't even have Skypiea anymore. You know where Skypiea is? It doesn't exist. Skypiea is gone. There is no Skypiea anymore. It's destroyed at the end of the day. They've got Chandra, and Chandra is just a fucking, or Chandra Jaya, whatever you want to call it, like, that, the Verth, and the Verth is just a fucking jungle. There's nothing there. You know? So, they're going to rebuild there. But that's a big part of the idea of One Piece in general. That's a fairly consistent idea. I like that idea a lot. I like it's a very satisfying way to write the story. It's also one of the reasons, like, Oda really nailed the tone for how he presents the world. Because if One Piece was written or done any more realistically, like, it's done in a very cartoonish manner. So, like, the very next chapters, Oda can draw and depict all the citizens, like, happily, like, hammering together a town again or whatever. And, you know, that it feels good because even though One Piece is very realistic and raw in moments, there's a sort of easiness to, like, the world just works, right? Like, the people will just rebuild the town and it'll be nice and easy, right? If it was done any more realistic, like if you're reading Attack on Titan or something and, like, the entire town is destroyed or something, like, that's cataclysmic, right? It's all in rubble. It all sucks. Like, this is terrible. It's bad for the economy. It's bad for how many people are starving or dying or whatever now because we don't have shelter properly anymore. We have to rebuild this town from scratch. And One Piece is just like, oh, it's just a fucking town. Like, we're okay with that. We're going to rebuild that shit today. There's just a lighter atmosphere to it. Like, I remember one of the key things in the Dressrosa arc, which I always find funny, is like, what they would say is they would talk about the kingdom before Doflamingo, and they would talk about, we were a very poor kingdom. This kingdom didn't have a lot of money because Riku wasn't that focused on the economy or like building wealth for the nation or something like that. It's like, we didn't have money, but we were all really happy. And it's kind of like, why? Why were you like? That just doesn't make any sense in real life. Like, if you're a nation that's pretty poor, the living conditions, etc., reflect that. But in Dressrosa, it's kind of just hand waved away in the sense that, like, yeah, we're a poor nation, but we're happy. We love it. We're happy with it. We're happy because we're morally a good nation and we've got a good moral king. And it's like, okay, that works in the fantasy universe that One Piece exists in, because it's not meant to be realistic. It's meant to be more idealistic. Black Lightning, thanks for the 5. Fun fact, you cannot show me a panel of Kizaru actually trying to fight Luffy full power. Power scale made you all blind to the story Oda trying to tell. Tony, I don't even know what to say, man. Are you sure it's not the other way? In the sense that power scaling has made you blind and you came in with a predetermined decision that no matter what, Kizaru would be nerfed throughout the fight, and there's just no other way to spin it? Like, I don't really know what to say. I can easily say Luffy didn't fight Kizaru at full power. Literally, the first round that Luffy fights Kizaru, he catches Kizaru, right? And then we know from round 2 that Luffy could have squeezed Kizaru right then, but he didn't. Round 1, Luffy just throws him away. So we know for a fact that Luffy was holding back. Not just holding back, but Luffy was toying with Kizaru. Because again, you can compare round 1 and round 2. Round 2, Luffy does the same thing, starts the fight by grabbing Kizaru. Round 2, Luffy actually squeezes him. Round 1, he throws him away, has some fun, Luffy's toying with him. I would agree, let's slow down here, because I would agree that Kizaru didn't use Awakening, so we know for a fact that he technically did not use his full power. But there's a large gap in terms of how much Luffy was trying against Kizaru versus how much Kizaru was trying against Luffy. Because we can see round 2 Luffy right away, and round 2 Luffy, he shows that, yeah, he could have been a lot rougher with Kizaru the first time around if he had felt like it. So, like, there's a difference between, like, Kizaru not using his ultimate technique, Awakening or whatever, versus Luffy literally treating Kizaru like a toy to play with, which is what that was. Akash Panda, thanks for the 5. Sabo's fire will beat Akainu's magma, then Akainu will bust out Conqueror's Haki and beat Sabo, then Luffy will save Sabo and beat Akainu, win-win. Maybe, I don't know. I like the idea of Luffy saving Sabo from Akainu. I like that idea quite a bit, so I'm always going to be cool with that. Akainu will bust out Conqueror. Yeah, maybe. Vinny, Drake or Kendrick Morj? I like Kendrick. I've never liked Kendrick's music. Jackson F. I've never liked Drake's music. I don't know if... Kendrick I tried to listen to one time way before. Obviously I heard Humble and like I've heard Kendrick songs, but like the only time I really tried listening to him before, I didn't really like it. I found his voice kind of, I said before, I found it kind of synthetic sounding. But then this beef reintroduced me to Kendrick. I listened to Euphoria, thought that was fucking mind-blowing, and then I started listening to a full Kendrick album, and now I think he's amazing. Like there are songs of his that I added to my general playlist that, you know, now I'm cool with listening to in general rotation. But before this beef started, my views were I don't really like Drake's music in general. And Kendrick I've barely tried, and I know that people respect him, but I feel like he's not my style. That's what I thought before this. Now I'm like, okay, I still don't like Drake's music, but I definitely like some Kendrick songs. Jackson F., welcome to the Yonko. Thank you very, very much for joining. I hope you look forward to this week's podcast, this Friday's Yonko podcast, because we will probably have a lot to talk about after this week's chapter drops, because I have seen some spoilers already. Spoilers were dropping for this week's chapter last week, which really confused me. I don't know if we were getting a chapter last week, this week, whatever. Ty, thanks a lot. It's unfortunate that Frankie isn't relevant because his backstory is tied into the morality of creating weapons, which could tie into Vegapunk's creations. That's a great point. That is actually a very, very good point, because I think a lot of people talk about, including myself, right? I'm part of the problem, in that, not part of the problem, this is not a problem, but I'm part of this group in that a lot of us are saying, like, Frankie should have a storyline. He should have an arc in Egghead, right? Frankie just should. He should just have an arc in Egghead. Why is he not having a significant character arc in Egghead, right? But what you're coming up with is an actual, like it's easy to throw out and say Frankie should just have a storyline in Egghead. What you're bringing up is perfect in the sense that this is what Frankie's arc would and should be about in Egghead, because in Egghead, the whole the whole issue, the whole reason that we're having this whole problem right now is because Vegapunk was too fucking good at creating weapons, and he got us in this fucking hole where there's all these fucking pacifistas and seraphim and fucking island destroying weaponry that's in the world government's hands right now, and they're gonna probably get their hands on all of it by the end of this arc, right? Probably all of it. He's been making it for them for a while, and soon they will have complete access, right? If they get York, they'll have infinite Mother Flames. So Vegapunk is the problem in that he's been making all of these weapons. But at the same time, we understand that Vegapunk is also trying to save the world and help the world in his own way. So Frankie being basic, like, this is an arc about weapons of mass destruction. Frankie's OG character arc is about the creation of weapons, the morality of creating weapons, the right for weapons to exist, the right to create weapons, the intent behind how you create, like, the intent behind why you use weapons, the responsibility of having them, and in general, the responsibility of weapons of mass destruction. That's all Frankie. That's like Frankie 101. It's been so fucking long. It's been so fucking long since Frankie had a real character arc in any storyline. I think it really hasn't happened since fucking Enies Lobby, that I almost forgot the fucking core principle of what his character is and how it does tie. This hurts more. This actually hurts more now that I think about it. Because before I was just like, man, it sucks that Oda didn't think of anything for Frankie for this arc, because he should have just thought of something for Frankie. But now that you're bringing this up, it's like, man, this is just, Oda doesn't even have to think up of anything for Frankie because the arc is already tailor-made for Frankie. It's like an arc that's built around Frankie's own personal moral conflict in the first place, his own character conflict. He doesn't necessarily need to grow in some way this arc, but there should at least be some way that he can contribute in terms of perspective, thoughts, like just general input on, like, there has to be, like, maybe him teaching Vegapunk something, or him, I don't know, there's got to be something in there for Frankie, right? Because it's so easy, because this is the same storyline as Enies Lobby in terms of that aspect of things, in terms of weapons, the creation of weapons of mass destruction, the threat of weapons of mass destruction, the responsibility of having created them. It's the same thing. That's what we're dealing with. Pacifista, Seraphim, the Mother Flame, right? It's all the same shit. That is actually very upsetting. Thank you, TY, for bringing that up. Like, not in a, like... But it's just, I don't know. That's a great point you just made, because it's just like, the arc is already built for him. Like, you don't have to retroactively think of something like, oh, I'm in Vegapunk's arc, Frankie learned from Vegapunk, now I gotta think of something for Frankie this arc. You don't. Like, it already just, he neatly slips in there, right? There's some way. Like, the opening is already there. You still have to think of how you fill that opening. No innuendos here, right? The opening, writing-wise, is already there for Frankie and his perspectives and his character to fit into the ideas and themes of the arc, right? The opening is already there. You do still have to think of the scenes and the writing around it. That's obviously difficult, but it could not be more tailor-made for him already, right? Nothing has to be... It fits organically. It's already there. It goes back to... In fact, to not write anything for Frankie here is basically like forgetting what Frankie's storyline was in the first place, because this is probably the only storyline in One Piece that is going to be this closely tied to what Frankie's initial character conflict was about, you know? It would be like if... Like, it would be like if we were in Whole Cake, right? Imagine Sanji didn't even have that whole, like, hostage... Not hostage, but, like, cut all the Germa shit out, whatever. Pretend the Straw Hats just organically got to Whole Cake Island, right? And pretend that Whole Cake Island, organically, there was already some sort of conflict in there that involved, like, the importance of food, or the importance of, like, valuing food, something like that, right? You would already be like, okay, well, this needs to be something for Sanji, because this is reiterating the same ideas that are from Baratier, right? That's kind of where we're at with this, in the sense that, like, it feels like there needs to be something for Frankie here, because it's reiterating the same ideas, the same conflicts from Enies Lobby and Water 7. So I don't know. That has swayed my opinion somewhat more. Because before I was just like, you know, we all want something for Frankie because it's an arc about building stuff and mechanics and Egghead Island and robotics and all that stuff, so it fits. But I'm like, okay, that doesn't have to be Frankie's. He doesn't need something. It just feels like a missed opportunity. But now that you bring up, like, what is this arc really about? It's about these weapons that Vegapunk has created and how that's affecting the entire world, right? That really swings me over to being like, yeah, that's Frankie's whole... Like, that goes to the core of his fucking character and what his character conflict was built on. So, I don't know. That has made me a little bit more jaded even about this. Okay, we're going to get to the bounties in a second. Let me get through these. Bianca Pravat, thanks for the 2. Do you still think Smoker will join the crew? I think there's a better chance of Smoker joining the crew now than I felt in the last, like, 150 chapters. Because, 100-something chapters. Just because the whole world's about to wake up. Right? The whole world's about to wake up. Smoker lives very close by, like a stone's throw away. That's where he's at right now. Oda has not shown us anything from Smoker just recently, so he's saving him. Like, he even showed us Tashigi. He has not shown us Smoker, so Smoker's being saved for some reason. Do I think I could see Smoker licking up with the Straw Hats at least on board their ship for a moment? Yes. JWP, thanks for the 5. Yeah, it's weird how Luffy promised Katakuri he'd come back, and now he has no reason to go back, lol. Yeah, I thought that was all weird. I'd say it's weirder in the Big Mom sense, but I don't know. Yeah. That was a whole thing. The Low Man, thanks for the 2. Luffy literally incapacitated Kizaru in one attack. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, Luffy literally did it right away. And you can't say that Kizaru wasn't trying because he was already moving at light speed. Sorry, at light speed. Like, Kizaru was moving at the speed of light as Luffy caught him. Kizaru cannot move faster than that. We already saw he's in light mode, right? And Luffy caught him and squeezed, right? Is Kizaru faking it when he's coughing up blood? I don't know. If he's not trying, why is he shooting lasers at Luffy afterwards? I don't know. I just don't like that the goalpost got moved for Kizaru a lot, because it was like, when Luffy was initially fighting Kizaru round 1, everybody was saying, well, this doesn't count because Kizaru's not actually trying to kill Vegapunk. He's just pretending that he's going to try and kill Vegapunk, but he's not actually trying to kill Vegapunk. Kizaru fucking killed Vegapunk. That's why Vegapunk is dead, because Kizaru killed him. Kizaru was, in fact, trying to kill Vegapunk the entire time. He was not he was not faking it. He was not throwing the fight. He was not like, oh, I'm going to allow Luffy to beat me so that I can't kill Vegapunk. The moment he got an opportunity to kill Vegapunk, he killed Vegapunk. He was trying to take any opportunity he could to kill Vegapunk. He was not holding back. That, like, if you want to say afterwards, well, now he's sad. Therefore, at this moment in time, now that Kizaru's ruminating on what he just did, yeah, Kizaru's probably not at his best. I don't think Kizaru's so injured by Luffy that he can't actually fight. I agree with that. But it's just like, he killed Vegapunk. After that, he was caught by Luffy while Kizaru was going at the speed of light. He's going at the speed of light. He can't really go fucking faster than that. Luffy caught him at his top speed. After that, he continues to fight back, shooting his lasers and shit at Luffy. I don't know what exactly Kizaru fans are claiming that Kizaru can do right here, because he's caught by Luffy. He's coughing up blood. He doesn't have any other move in his moveset to get out of this other than shoot lasers at Luffy. Luffy dodges and does Dawn Symbol, and then Luffy throws Kizaru into the sea. And honestly, Kizaru should be fucking dead, but he got lucky that there's a ship there, right? I don't know, like, what the story is with the, like, what's this obsession? It's one of those things where, like, if you already decided beforehand that that nothing that happens to Kizaru this fight counts, then you will always be able to find some reason. But if you just read the story without trying to do mental gymnastics, I feel like it's fairly clear that Oda's not trying to suggest that Kizaru could have beaten Luffy, but he was holding back or something like that. If you genuinely still think that Kizaru could have beaten Luffy, I just don't know what to say. The Low Man, yeah, we covered this. That's literally what we're talking about. If Kizaru killed Vegapunk, at the first opportunity that he could, you can no longer say that Kizaru was not trying round 1, right? Because we saw for a fact that Kizaru was trying to kill Vegapunk, and he did it as soon as he had got the chance, as soon as there was an opening. The reality is there wasn't an opening before, because Luffy was stalling him, right? We do know for a fact that Luffy was holding back round 1, because we can compare it directly to round 2, where Luffy round 1, once he's grabbed Kizaru, does not squeeze him. Luffy round 2, when he's kind of pissed off, grabs Kizaru and does squeeze him and makes him cough up blood. So you can't really argue Kizaru holding back round 1. You can definitely, it's canonical that Luffy was holding back round 1, right? It's just what happened in the story. Awakening does exist for Kizaru, though. So I will rescind this entire argument. If Kizaru shows his awakening, and it's so mind-blowing that it's like, fuck, if he'd busted that out against Luffy, then Luffy would have been done. Because awakening exists. I'm always going to be open to taking in new information, right? But I don't like the angle that Kizaru fans have gone with so far, which is basically like, well, he wasn't trying, like, he wasn't attempting to actually kill Kizaru or carry out his goals. He was. We know he was, because he did his goal. Like, he did his goal the moment he had a window to do his goal, right? To accomplish his goal, right? If you want to fall back on like, well, he just didn't use Awakening because he wanted to save that for something else or something like that, that's a fair argument. Once we see the Awakening, maybe we can readjust. But you can't rewrite how the character was written based on the fact that the character is regretting things now. Two things can be true. You can regret having done something and still have been literally trying to achieve that thing and carry out your orders in the first place. Two things can be true. Oda's not like trying to be like, aha, you see, Kizaru's sad about it, which means that he could have beaten Luffy the entire time, and he was just he was avoiding beating Luffy the entire time, but Kizaru is in fact so much stronger than Luffy that despite not trying to beat Luffy the entire time, he still just ended up killing Vegapunk anyway. I don't even know. Shonen Academia, thanks a lot. How's your son? I haven't forgotten. Also, Wanovid. Oh, my son, 18 years old now. I can finally kick him out of the house. I'm done with him. Also, the Wanovid. Wanovid, I do think will be out before Egghead Island. That's all I'm saying so far. I did not work on it last week, but I do think based on how much I actually got to see still needs to be done, will be done most likely before Egghead. Most likely before Egghead. No promises, but it is more doable than I thought. Also helps that Oda's taking so many breaks. Akash Panda, thanks for the 5. Luffy and Sanji bonded over their dreams in Ratier. Both will achieve their dreams when the Red Line is destroyed. One Piece land and All Blue Sea. Yeah, so back when we kind of got the theory that the All Blue is the destruction of the Red Line, at that point in time, I really thought that, like, just the destruction of the All Blue, like, that creates the One Piece and that creates the... Sorry, the destruction of the Red Line, I really thought that will create the One Piece and that'll create the All Blue, and Luffy and Sanji's treasures are the same. But now, with the new theory, it still works because by defeating Imu and all of the flood draining, etc., they will both get their dreams. It just turns out they're two separate things. Sanji's All Blue is the surrounding water. Luffy's One Piece is the one piece of land. So I like that as well. It still works. I Can Drive. Thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 13 months. Could it be possible we also get Dragon's Bounty to compare how the world government scales the threat level of government attacks? I wonder what Dragon's Bounty would be. You think we get Dragon's Bounty at the end of Egghead? I think we could, because, like, that is actually a great point, because it's, like, what if Luffy passes Dragon's Bounty by the end of Egghead? Because, as far as we know, Dragon really hasn't done shit like this, period. This is on a different scale, right? So, it could be climactic to see Dragon's Bounty at the end of Egghead and then be like, and now it's been topped by an even higher bounty, his own son, Monkey D. Luffy. And then Luffy's bounty poster goes up. Dick so small, I piss on my balls. Frankie's going to continue Vegapunk's research, complete the ancient fuel research, change the world, and no one will really think about this. That'd be cool. I don't know if Frankie can create Mother Flames. I feel like that feels more science-y than engineering-y. I know that those two things cross over, but I guess we need to learn more about what the Mother Flame is, because I think of Frankie more so as just like just a super duper skilled mechanic, you know? Obviously that's unfair. I know engineers, there's a shit ton more that goes behind that, but the Mother Flame to me, it sounded more, well, I guess I don't even know, like physics based or chemistry. I don't know what the fuck. Like, I don't know what the Mother... I just don't know if that's Frankie's area of expertise. I feel like that falls under more... Like, Frankie's not a scientist in that sense, right? Like, I feel like someone like Caesar Clown or Judge or something might be more likely there. I don't know. Classic Trading, thanks for the 5. Luffy will be a 5.656 billion man next. There's no reason to even have bounties after this. Yeah, I do agree with that. I've always felt that Luffy's final bounty would be 5.6 billion berries. I did think that would happen after he found the One Piece, though. So I'm kind of like, what will his increase be after this? Because reasonably, his increase, it should be higher than anybody else's. It just should. Like, he got undercut for Wano, and after this, it's the whole, like, this is the biggest terrorist attack in world government history, right? This is everything, like, fucking Egghead, he's fucking punching out Gorosei and shit like that, you know? Taking out the entire government lab, threatening, like, he has this whole Buster Call, 100,000 ships sent after him, like, that's the equivalent of Marine Ford and everything. I don't know. I don't know. Sean Easton, thanks for the 5. Hashtag justice for Frankie. Maybe if Oppenheimer read One Piece, he wouldn't have been such a little bitch. Oh my god. All right, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's the message. Okay, as soon as we catch up on these, I will start the bounty discussion. June, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 16 months. Dragon's bounty is probably 10 trillion. He's responsible for taking so many islands from the world government and making them directly opposed to them. I don't think it's 10 trillion, dude. I don't think there's any bounty in One Piece that's in the trillions. Like, that's... It's... Because, like... Even 10 billion would be way, 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 way higher than the standard that we've kind of had for bounties so far. 10 trillion, it's just like... It's is that 1,000 times bigger than 10 billion? Right? Because billion, 100 billion... Yeah, it's 1,000 times more than 10 billion. I don't know if that makes any sense, man. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think Roger did shit like this. I mean, we don't know. I think God Valley, whatever went on in God Valley would be the closest. Because that's like Roger fucking with celestial dragons and shit, you know? Not a Pro 64, thanks to 5. Morj, your new schedule sucks. I haven't caught it stream in weeks. Thoughts on Luffy equals Sun, Emu equals Moon, Blackbeard equals Eclipse. I think my schedule's been relatively the same though. Mondays is always the same. Oh, sorry. Mondays is always the same. Thursdays have been bumped to Fridays. And I can't fix that, man. That's just when the chapters come out nowadays. It's just the chapters come out on Fridays, so I've got to do it when the chapter comes out. So I'm sorry about that, but it is the way it is. Luffy equals Sun, Emu equals Moon, Blackbeard equals Eclipse. Emu equaling the Moon or the Earth is what I've gone back and forth on. It's equal either the Moon or the Earth. So that's the tricky thing. Blackbeard equaling the Eclipse is a question mark. Because I'm just like, that's not a tangible celestial object. I think I'm gravitating more towards, shouldn't it be a tangible celestial object? But it is an interesting idea because it still works into the whole... it still fits symbolically with everything else, but it's just not quite, you know, there's no celestial body associated with it. I could see that. I think Blackbeard's the biggest mystery for me in One Piece right now in general, like his role, all of that. Also, let's get the stream likes to 200 real quick. Paul, thanks for the 5. I'm disappointed in Vegapunk as a written character. One of the most hyped characters in One Piece turned out to be a typical generic nerd trope. Okay, so I was with you on that for a while. Like, not terribly disappointed. I was just like, man, it's just not that interesting. I think when because people might forget, but Vegapunk for a long time was genuinely up there for the most hyped character reveals in One Piece ever. People were obsessive about who is Vegapunk, what is Vegapunk. There were theories that Vegapunk is an alien. There came a time that there were theories that Vegapunk is a Lunarian, theories that Vegapunk was from the moon, theories that Vegapunk was from the Void Century. There was Oda had a strange amount of mystery surrounding Vegapunk. So initially when Vegapunk was introduced, and it was cool, like it's a One Piece version of a genius, this is Einstein plus Isaac Newton, like combined into this silly figure, like a very exaggerated version of the two. It was cool. It's just very quickly, I think people weren't that interested in Vegapunk as he came out, you know? The most interest, in fact, was when Vegapunk, the first chapter of Vegapunk was revealed, and everyone was like, oh, Vegapunk's a woman, because Lilith was the character that we saw, right? That was the peak in terms of Vegapunk surprise factor hype. I remember this in the sense because, again, I do the YouTube channel, so you can kind of just, you have metrics literally to be able to track when people are really, really excited about something, when things are not so exciting. I will say that overall, Vegapunk in the early stages, like once we got the actual reveal of who Vegapunk is, kind of getting to hear him talk and things like that, he wasn't as interesting of a character as the initial, you know, as what a lot of people had cooked up for him in the past. However, here's the thing. What I've realized now, especially with Vegapunk's big speech, is that Vegapunk himself as a character was never meant to be the most... it was never about the character. Vegapunk represented... The reason Oda built up Vegapunk so much is because he represented two things. One, the mechanism by which most of the final conflict of the One Piece world will take place, meaning pacifistas, mother flames that will power the ancient weapon, Seraphim, just all the technological elements, the things that will enable the world government to carry out the Great Cleansing, the things that were on the forefront of technology that, like, because it's all scientific development that's happening, it allows Oda to build a narrative where over time, we're heading towards a point where the world government will have the capability to wage a final war that will wipe out the world, right? So you need to have a scientist, a plot mechanism that explains why we're heading towards this direction, right? It's not ready pre-time skip, but something is happening in the background. It comes down to this one man, this genius, that's allowing things to build, and we're getting to a point where the world government will one day just be able to wipe out everybody, right? We get hints of it pre-time skip, like what are these pacifistas? What's this technology that's being developed behind the scenes? There's something happening behind the scenes at the world government that's very scary. So Vegapunk, to begin with, he's this mechanism for the final war taking place. He's the mechanism that allows things to have a timeline, right? So it's like, why hasn't the world government got all of this ready yet to go? It's because it's being built and developed by a scientist, right? It sets a timeline, a trajectory for things to slowly build and build towards something. It's also why Oda littered the entire New World with scientists beforehand to kind of build to what the world government's got going on. You got Caesar building shit for Doflamingo and Kaido, Judge building, like he's got technology that could go to Big Mom. Oda's weaving this sort of scientific development arms race storyline into the story to finally hit us with the reveal that like this is the end game of science, with the shit that Vegapunk's doing behind the scenes in the background. This is the end game of the arms race. The world government actually this entire time, they've pretty much got a bigger lead on the arms race than any of us ever realized, and now that it's finally coming to fruition, they're pretty much ready to pull the trigger and wipe out everything, right? So that's number one in terms of why Oda built up Vegapunk so much, right? It's not so much even what the character himself was, it's what the character plot-wise allows for the story to build to, okay? And it allows a plot explanation for why everything's not ready yet, pre-time skip, for the world government to just do what they want to do, right? So that's one. Number two is that Vegapunk represents a milestone in the story, right? Oda needed, and I've done videos in the past talking about this, Oda needed a mechanism in the story to allow information to be spread out to the entire world to rally everybody for a great change to happen and for everyone to recognize the evil that the world government is. He needed something. He needed the moment where kind of the glass shattered, like, because everybody in the One Piece world thinks they live in a utopia. They think the world government's all good. They think everything's cool, right? They needed a glass shattering moment where the truth is pulled back, the wool is pulled back from over their eyes or whatever. They realize everything. The curtain is drawn aside. They find out what's going on. They find out the world government's evil. They find out they need to be fighting back. They find out that a great cleansing is coming. They find out all this shit, all right? The world government being exposed, that needs to happen. So the second reason Vegapunk was important is that he is the ultimate mechanism for that happening. Because the only way, like, not the only way, I'm sure Oda could have thought of other ways, but the idea of like, okay, what if I have the world's smartest man who, along with developing all the weapons for the world government, who also has so much information, the most information out of anyone in the world. He knows what's going on behind the scenes, and he, out of everybody else, would have the ability to broadcast said information to the entire world and be trusted because the world knows him as Vegapunk, the world's greatest scientist, right? Vegapunk can take over the broadcast streams. He can transmit information all over the world, right? So the reason that Vegapunk was being built up so much for so long was not because of the character himself, who he was. Like, at the end of the day, Vegapunk is just some dude, a really smart scientist with a brain fruit. He's not some crazy Void Century person or, like, Lunarian or from space or an alien or something like that or some big villain. He is just a dude. But what he represents, the reason Oda hyped him for so long is that he represents a moment in the story that everything changes, right? Once Vegapunk is brought out of the shadows and Oda puts Vegapunk into the story, now everything's coming together. It's time for all the world government's weapons and everything like that. They're going to be brought out. They'll be shifted around to whoever side is going to get them. That's happening. And two, the moment Vegapunk's arc comes, that's the moment that the cat's out of the bag. Pandora's box is opened, right? Vegapunk essentially represents Pandora's box. Every time Oda was hyping up Vegapunk, he's like, there's this mysterious guy, this mysterious dude. It was like he's hyping up basically the day that Armageddon begins, the day that Doomsday begins, right? Because that's what's happening right now. So I know, long tangent on that, but that's just how I've come around, because I did kind of go through the cycle of like, man, I was so excited for Vegapunk for so long, and like at the end of the day, he is just kind of a generic, not generic, like he's fun, he's like the funny, goofy One Piece version of it, and the Six Bodies is like somewhat interesting, but I didn't think it was like that mind-blowing that Oda needed to build him up for so long. But now Now that we're getting this stuff happening, I'm like, okay, I see the vision. Like, Oda, what Vegapunk represented in Oda's mind to his story was basically the beginning of the end, right? This is the character that ties that launches everything for the end game of the story. So you need to keep him away because he knows too much information and he has too much information, and he gives away too much for what the end game of the story looks like. Anyway, moving on. Josh Nesbitt, thanks for the 5. Theory from last video. Luffy wants to be the Pirate King with the whole world on a ship. If everyone was on the Noah, it would fulfill Luffy's dream. That is a really good theory. I talked about something like this a little bit earlier. Somebody else had an idea similar to this earlier in the stream. So, all I'll say is that there is going to be a video coming talking about how Luffy's dream works off of the back of this latest video, because I do think, like my editor brought this up, just the fact that everyone will be on the same ship at one time, I think it's very, very, very likely to be tied to what Luffy's actual dream is. I'm not going to get into the details here, but that is a really, really good angle on it as well. There's several things that you can talk about that could potentially be the answer to his true dream right there. Rodrigo Aliaga, sorry. Thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 2 months. Hello, I think there won't be a big increase because Oda's saving the 5.6 billion for Pirate King Luffy, even if in universe Luffy should be 6 billion after this. Also, how about a stream on a One Piece panels tier list? Okay, so 2 parts to that. I agree with you on the 5.6 billion thing. I think there's a very, very good chance that Oda's just not going to pull the trigger here. I think Oda's stalling out Luffy's bounty a little bit right now because he did the big jump to 1.5 bill. If people don't remember, almost fucking nobody had Luffy going from 500 million to 1.5 billion after Whole Cake Island. That seemed like a huge jump. That was higher than what most people thought. Like, a lot of people were debating whether it would even be higher than Katakuri's, right? So that was a huge jump. Then the Wano jump was fucking tiny compared to what Luffy actually did. It should have been way bigger than the Dressrosa to Whole Cake Island jump. And now it's like Luffy's final bounty that he will have in the story will likely be 5.6 billion, because that's the moment that he kind of passes the previous Pirate King. Rogers was 5.5, Luffy's 5.6. 5.6 has always represented Luffy. So it's like 5.6. It just feels like Luffy has to do the final act of him as a pirate, like whatever the big final thing of him, like the moment he's crowned Pirate King or something, that's when he should get 5.6, right? So it's too early for him to get 5.6, but it almost doesn't make sense for him to have anything less at this point, which is why I feel like Oda's really going to be stalling out Luffy's bounty a little bit. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it only goes to like 4 billion after this. Keep it under Shanks. I don't know. A One Piece panels tier list, I think that's too difficult. I think that's difficult because then it's like, what are you rating it on? Are you rating it on the artwork? Are you rating it on the moment, what the moment itself is, like most iconic panels? I guess in that case, something like Akainu killing Ace might be number 1. I'm not sure. That's an idea. I'll jot that down as an idea. Give me 1 second. That's an idea. Gerard, thanks for the 5. When I caught up, we were getting 36 to 37 chapters a year. Now it's down to 30 or so. It's crazy we might still have 6+ years left. Yeah. You guys remember after Wano ended and Oda said it would be 5 years? I was trying to that terrified me, because I personally felt like Oda had rushed through a lot of Wano and like a lot of plot lines didn't get what they kind of deserved. So I was just like, man, it feels like we have definitely more than 5 years left. I don't know how Oda's going to do it in like less than 200 chapters, because at that point, like 5 years meant less than 200 chapters. Now it's just like, man, I'm never believing it's 5 years again. Like, he said 5 years so many times, I'm fucking done believing it. It's over. 6+ years at the rate he's going seems reasonable. Okay. I'm almost caught up, then we're going to start the thing. Dick so small, I piss on my balls. Frankie figuring out using cola as fuel. That's true! I forgot about that shit. What if Uranus could be used with cola? That'd be hilarious. I totally forgot about that. Frankie using cola as fuel. I forgot. It's a good point. Maybe he does figure out the Mother Flame. Brian, thanks for the 5. Blackbeard specifically sought out the Darkness Fruit. He knows a ton. Maybe he knows nullifying powers is the only way to kill the Gorosei. That is very, very possible. I also think, though, that the Darkness Fruit, he may have... Yeah, because maybe that would negate the immortality surgery, things like that. Oh my god, that's a great point. Great point. Love that. That's a great point. Fantastic point. I think that also is related to him being able to steal powers from other people, so it could be twofold. But the darkness fruit could be the mechanism to allow a lot of things to happen in the story. Akash Panda, thanks for the 2. I chose an epitaph for you. Nightmare of Baltimore. For those of you who don't know, I was from Baltimore before this. Nightmare of Baltimore. Thank you. Appreciate that. NewX7, thanks for the 20. Morj, sorry I've not been around. Switched username as said on Patreon DM. Oh, okay, wait, I think I might have seen that. No worries about not being around. Hold on. Did I see that? Missed your previous super. Okay, hold on. There's a few things. Many things to share on a later date. For now, Dragon's bounty is 5.602 billion and defeating Akainu when younger. And he defeated Akainu when he was younger. I don't know about defeating Akainu when he was younger. But 5.60, I could see dragons being 5 bill plus. I don't know if Oda would have it higher than Roger and Whitebeard. We just know the dragons is the highest today. But being 5.6 would be good. Are you saying that maybe Luffy gets 5.6 and then he's still slightly under Dragon, and then at the end of the story his bounty is higher than Dragon? But I don't think he'd have a bounty at the end of the story. That's difficult. Missed your previous super? Let me check. I'm sorry about that. But, and thank you for the 20 again, seriously. Dragon's bounty being 5.602. I just don't know when Luffy would pass. Like, I feel like once Luffy's Pirate King, he should have the highest bounty in the world still. I don't know. Just feels right. Hold on. And then in the meantime, let me acknowledge this. Not a Pro 64, thanks to the 5. I brought up the Seraphim being kidnapped by the Blackbeard Pirates way back, and right now they're missing in action despite all the chaos. I'm 100% confident in the theory right now. Oh, were you the one that brought that up? Because I do think that's a really good theory. I think that's a really, really cool theory. Blackbeard Pirates having the Seraphim. Because it's just like... I feel like it could give some more... I feel like the Blackbeard Pirates need some buffs. You know? Because on the one hand, some people look... Like, I just think that their showing against Garp was not that impressive. You know? Oh, I did miss your previous super. I'm sorry, Matt. Sorry about that. NewX7, thank you very much. Theory on Nami being a D/princess. From smiling as a baby amid war to wearing Zoe's treasure and Shirahoshi stating that she felt that she met her before, and her weather powers. Also Luffy and Sabo versus Akainu. Okay, so I think Nami being a D, I wouldn't necessarily like it, but I can see that being a possibility just because I do think it's possible. I think if there's any romance that Oda ever does for Luffy, like a genuine romance, not a gag romance like Hancock, if there's any genuine romance that Luffy is ever supposed to be written for, I think Nami is the most likely. If there's ever supposed to be an actual romance, I think Nami is the most likely. In that case, Nami being a D might just be something that Oda does to, like, it could be good for her character down the line. In that sense, because one thing I've always found fun about Nami is that she's always the most grounded in all of this, in the sense that, like, the mythos of everything that's happening around her, it feels the most distant to her and, like, her conception of the world, and, like, this is all just some crazy shit with, like, superpowers and monsters and such, and she's just, like, she always kind of dismissed a lot of the craziness that's been going on, right? Her being a D involves her in the thick of it, you know? Obviously being a key member of the Pirate King's crew does too, but, like, being a D means that, like, no, you are literally born into this, in a sense. So I think that's interesting. I also think that if there is any supposed romance that's supposed to happen, Luffy Nami would be the most likely, and along those lines, it's like, if she is supposed to be getting or if Luffy is supposed to be getting a romance, I think Luffy with a D, kind of like Roger with Port Casti Rouge, I think that's possible. Thank you. All right. JWP, thanks for the 10. Always good to see you, man. Oda deciding to kill Vegapunk was a great idea. And the whole brain thing about whether he's alive or not fits the Kuma story very well. Yes, 100% agree. At first, I was like, Vegapunk's death was a little not dramatic, so I didn't believe it right off the bat, but then it seems like there's more to it, and it's not as cut and dry. So, and also, Vegapunk's not the type of character that I think we would get too emotional over him actually dying. So I think the way Oda is going about this is very good. And I think the ramifications for Kuma's storyline and what it opens up there is more important, like you said. Also, you can argue that Vegapunk is a top 7 most important character in One Piece. Yes, you definitely can. I think most important character is really tough to discuss because it's just like, what does that mean? It's like I think Usopp is a really important character to the story. I think like Usopp's a really important character in the story. Like narratively reading, you can't imagine reading all of pre-time skip with all of Usopp's moments missing, right? Usopp's storylines, Usopp's moments, it's so much is lost from the story. But pure plot-wise, Usopp is not that important to the story. Like, there's things that they fail in if they don't have Usopp, like getting Robin back and such, but you know what I mean? If you mean, like, in the broader world of One Piece, yeah, Vegapunk is 100% top 4 or 5 most important characters, Depends what you mean by most important. All right. Right after this, okay. Cross Raider God, I'm going to answer this, and as I'm answering this, I'm going to be opening up the Microsoft Paint. It's that time. Microsoft Paint time has come. Cross Raider God, thanks for the 10. Honestly, Morj, the Blackbeard Pirates. Where's this? Honestly, Morj, the Blackbeard Pirates seem a little more competent on their own than the Straw Hats. Like, can you imagine Usopp and Robin pulling up on a Gorosei by themselves without Luffy? Like, pulling up is well, what do you mean? Because, like, right now, like, pulling up, what does that mean? Because pulling up, like, they're there, yeah, and they run away. On the other hand, right now what we have is the 3 weakest Straw Hats in the crew, Usopp, Nami, and Chopper. They're fighting that same Gorosei head on. They're not running. They're fighting that Gorosei head on. Cutting off Brooks there. But, they're fighting. Like, they're literally defending and going toe-to-toe with this Gorosei, at least for the moment, by themselves. Van Augur ran. Like, what do you want? Like, I feel like that's not really fair, So, yeah, I would say that, one, I think already I'm more impressed with what they're doing. But two, I don't think it's really fair to compare, like, Van Augur, like, Van Augur to the weakest Straw Hats. Yes, Van Augur is going to be an Usopp matchup down the line, but we can tell that Van Augur is one of the most competent Blackbeard Pirates, versus, the bulk of the Blackbeard Pirates crew. They were getting fucked up, just, like, all ganging up on Garp at the same time, and he's just holding them off with one hand as he's, like, beating up Aokiji with the other hand, The Straw Hats, on the other hand, like we've been seeing the Straw Hats fight Gorosei this arc, of the whole spectrum, the weakest Straw Hats, Frankie, Sanji, whoever you kind of want. We've seen Straw Hats fight against, like, top tier, like, we've seen Big Mom do stuff against, we've seen Jinbei do stuff against Big Mom. We've seen, like, Zor's scarred Kaido permanently. I think the Straw Hats are leaps and bounds more impressive than the Blackbeard Pirates. Before, like, the most impressive thing that the Blackbeard, like, put it this way, the most impressive thing that the Blackbeard Pirates did, like, the first moment that they seemed really, because if you guys recall, like, before this, they were seeming kind of shaky. When Van Augur dropped that line, what do you want, the world, that was the moment that it was like, holy shit, the Blackbeard Pirates are so cool. And they didn't even fight Saturn or anything, right? Like, they caught him after Kuma punched him, Katarina Devon touched him, and then Van Augur teleported them out of there. And he dropped a badass line. But it's revisionist history to kind of use that as the standard of the Blackbeard Pirates, because if you recall before that, the general community discussion and narrative and what you saw most people talking about was, like, how the Blackbeard Pirates are often actually very weak and disappointing. And that was coming off things like Aokiji casually freezing the entire Blackbeard Pirates crew 0 diff while he's just chilling in a bar, right? Or, like, Hancock 0 diffing the Blackbeard Pirates that showed up there, or Garp basically, again, injured, ganged up on, taking on the entire Blackbeard Pirates, plus Aokiji at the same time. There was never a moment that they were seeming very impressive up till now, right? I think especially when Shiryu tried to get his shot in against Garp while everybody else was fighting Garp, and that was kind of like the best he could do, and he got taken care of, like Garp brushed him off right after that. I think in general the narrative was that the Blackbeard Pirates aren't looking that impressive. Van Augur dropping a cool line and then escaping is cool, but it's nothing close to, like, the competency that the Straw Hats have shown, Jumping Whitebeard is the greatest feat as a crew. Yeah. Stefan Green, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 4 months. I mean, if Usopp had the warp fruit, he could easily do what Van Augur did. They were only able to do that because of his fruit, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, and with Van Augur, we're comparing, like, again, a character that has been portrayed as one of the strongest couple of the Blackbeard Pirates to Usopp, who is canonically the weakest Straw Hat pirate. It's just not really fair. I know that there's supposed to be a matchup down the line, but, like, Usopp's matchups are always about him beating someone that's way stronger than him. He's never fighting on even footing with somebody. Like, if you want to compare that, then compare Zoro. Compare Zoro to Van Augur. Compare Sanji to Van Augur. You know? Sanji just blocked Kizaru's laser and made Kizaru, like, have a reaction we've never seen in the entire story, right? Zoro just scarred Kaido permanently. Jinbei's flipped Big Mom multiple times instead of rolling out. Like, it's not really close to comparable. Jinbei's blocked Akainu. Jinbei's done so much throughout the story. Frankie and the Tobiropo. Frankie and Saturn. Like, the Blackbeard Pirates have never done anything really remotely close to as impressive as the Straw Hats. I think you're, like, yeah, it's cool that they pulled up on Agorase, but, like, Sanji's pulled up on Agorase right now, actually kicking his ass. Like, you know what? There's levels to this in terms of competency that the Straw Hats have shown. Eric J.O., thanks for the 5. Hey, Morj, have you seen that video where Badland Shugs drinks the entire ocean? Badland Shugs drinks the entire ocean? No, that's what Gear 5th Luffy's going to do, calling it. Wait, I never thought about something like that. Gear 5th Luffy just literally drinking a lot of the ocean and spitting it out? That could be pretty cool. That's insane. That would be, like, one of the most overpowered things he could ever do. I don't think he'd drink all of it, but, like, that's actually a really brilliant idea as to how the ocean could be drained at the end of the story. Van Augur would high div Zoro? What? You realize that Van Augur, so Van Augur, Burgess, like, there's levels to this. Van Augur, Burgess, Doc Q, and Blackbeard all jumped Law at the same time, and immediately Burgess, Van Augur, Doc Q were non-factors, right? It became, they gave some support, but it became Law versus Blackbeard. There's a huge gap there. Kenny says they literally killed Garp. Yeah, with Aokiji. Like, with fucking Fleet Admiral candidate on the same side as them. You think they had any hope against Garp if Aokiji wasn't there? Garp was basically running straight, like, just bulldozing through all of them while looking out for his Marine recruits and having to hold off Aokiji, and eventually it was all too much for him. But, like, dude, like, Garp humiliated them. Okay. Ender Anami says Mork not trying to have Law over Zoro LMAO. No, come on, like, even if you think Law is stronger than Zoro, you understand, like, Law's not so much stronger that Zoro would just lose to Van Augur, but Law can handle Van Augur, Burgess, Doc Q, and Blackbeard at the same time. Like, that, come on now. Alright. Let's get into it. Alright, everything's set here. Alright. Strahd Bounties. Post Egghead. Man, I hate I gotta type like this. This sucks. Okay. Strahd Bounties post Egghead. First of all, I think the Blackbeard Pirates could get a bounty increase. I definitely think Blackbeard could get a bounty increase. We're just gonna focus on the Strahds for now. To begin with, I don't fucking know what the Strahd's bounties are at this moment in time. I've forgotten. Let's see. There was a time that I could rattle off, like, all the Strahd's bounties from the beginning of the story. I think post-time skip it became hazier. I think I didn't enjoy... You know what it is? I think I didn't like a lot of this... Because, like, pre-time skip, I can tell you right now, right? Pre-time skip, Luffy's first bounty is 30 million berry, right? Then next bounties, Luffy gets 100 million, Zoro gets 60 million. Then at Enies Lobby, it's Luffy 300 million... Zoro 120 million, Nico Robin I think 80 million, Sanji 77 million, Frankie 44, Brooke I think starts the story with like a 30 million bounty or no, not 30, it's like 30 something, 33, 36, I forget Brooke's starting bounty. Soga King has 30 million, Nami has 16 million, Chopper has like 50, right? I can rattle off all of pre-time skip. Post-time skip, I don't remember their bounties that well because I think I generally don't like their bounties post-time skip. What I mean by that is, like, pre-time skip, I was always hyped when they got their bounty, like Luffy getting his first bounty, then after that he got like 100 million, Zoro gets a bounty 60 million, then, holy shit, Enies Lobby, they all get bounties, I'm so excited. Post-time skip, I started feeling like their bounty increases, like, were a little BS or not that fun. For me personally. for me personally. Because like Dressrosa, they got their new bounties, and I was just like, oh, 500 million, that feels kind of low for Luffy. Like, it just felt low. I was like, it's just the same as Law's, and like, Luffy's so much stronger than Law, and his crew's so much better, and he's done so much more. I was like, whatever. And Zoro's was like 320 million. I'm like, but Zoro, like, to me, just stop feeling excited. I'm like, Zoro's 320 million. That's like barely higher than pre-time skip Luffy's bounty. It just wasn't. It wasn't like cool to me. And then Sanji's like 177 million. I don't know. That it just didn't feel like pre-time skip. I felt like each bounty increase was really exciting to me. And then post-time skip, I stopped finding a lot of the bounty increases exciting. It was just new numbers. And I get it. It's realistic. The world government doesn't know everything they do, and like a lot of the Strats weren't even at Dressrosa. A lot of the Strats who weren't at Dressrosa and just got default 50 million bounty increases, that didn't feel exciting to me either, because it's just not. It doesn't stir any emotion to me to see like, oh, Frankie got a 50 million bounty increase for just exist. Like, they didn't even know what he did. They just gave him a default bounty increase. So I didn't enjoy the bounties after Dressrosa, so I stopped committing them to. I just didn't make a lasting impression in my memory, aside from Luffy's, because it is easy to remember. They didn't make like Usopp getting a 200 million bounty after Dressrosa. That was cool. I was excited seeing that, because I was like, that's fun, like that's exciting. But then like the others just being a default generic thing, it just wasn't. There wasn't any kick to it for me. Luffy getting a 1.5 bill after Whole Cake Island, I was like, yeah, okay, that's right. Now we're talking. This is exciting stuff. Like, this is what I want bounty reveals to feel like, you know? Like, it was so hype seeing Luffy get 300 million after Enies Lobby. You know, 1.5 bill. It like blows your mind. It seems higher than what most of us expected, but at the same time, it makes sense. Like, you get this explanation, like Grand Fleet after everything done there, after the events of Dressrosa, after taking on a Yonko Big Mom and coming out on top. 1.5 bill. I was like, this is amazing. I was sad the other Strats didn't catch up, but I was like, that's just the way it is sometimes, you know. And then Wano, I think it was back to the same shit where it's like, why is Zoro's bounty like 1.1 billion? Like, I get it, it's realistic, because the world government, like, he hasn't had that much time to build a track record yet, but I'm like, he just fucking destroyed King, you know? Give him a higher bounty. Like, dude, like, he destroyed King, he beat every single supernova that he fought in Wano, right? Hawkins, I guess it was a wash or whatever, but like, Hawkins, Apu, Killer, like, he's fighting all these supernova in Wano, beats King, permanently scars Kaido. I just felt like the bounty didn't reflect I'm like, so they think he's as much of a threat as Katakuri at this point? Is that what they think? I don't know. Like, it just didn't feel exciting. Sanji getting undercut with his bounty again. I was like, Sanji should also be in that range, the billion-something range. For some reason, Jinbei has a highest bounty that's basically the same as Zoro's. I don't know why, because it just doesn't make any fucking... Why does Jinbei have such a high bounty? It doesn't make any sense, because Jinbei's bounty before this was like 400-something. I don't know. Like, I just didn't find the bounties as exciting. And the kicker for me was Luffy only having a 3 billion berry bounty after Wano, and Law and Kid having the same thing. I think that really killed my love for bounties in general and bounty reveals, because I was just like, okay, so it's no longer a thing where you get really excited about the new number, I guess. It's more so, like, Oda's like, I don't know. He's going to... Like, you can always see the factors as to why some bounties are this way or that way. You can get it. You get the logical explanation. But for me, usually with the bounties, the fun was just the hype behind it. That's the fun of bounties, you know? It's not fun for me to see Luffy go through all this and carry the weight of Wano on his back and do, like fight Kaido to a stalemate in so many ways, get gear 5th, do all this shit. Like... bring the whole nation fucking together. You know, his crew defeats the Beast Pirates, basically, with pretty much no help from the Kid Pirates or the Heart Pirates. The entire alliance is riding on his, like, pinning their hopes on him. And then at the end of the day, it's like, Law and Kid, who had a fraction of his screen time, a fraction of his contributions, didn't even really beat Big Mom, and are like nowhere near as strong or as powerful as Luffy, have nowhere near the contributions, the subordinates, the allied forces, etc. Then it's just like, well, Luffy has the same bounties as them. It just stops being exciting for me. It's like, why would I feel excited reading Luffy's bounty being the same as Kid and Law's? Like, what is exciting about that? Nothing. It's, in fact, disappointing. It's less than what you're hoping for, right? Why would I be excited reading Zoro's bounty being so much less than King's after everything that Zoro did that arc? It's just like, it's not exciting. And you can be like, well, logically, Zoro doesn't hurt civilians and King does. It's like, yeah, I guess that's logical, but it's just like, Oda's done illogical things with bounties before. I don't know. It's more the fun of it, right? Like, why the fuck, if we want to get into logic, why the fuck was Robin's bounty so low for so long? If we want to get into logic, Law's bounty should have been 5 billion from the moment he ate the Ope Ope no Mi, right? Bounties, they can follow some level of logic, but like, I think excitement should be the driving factor. I was always excited pre-time skip when we got new bounties because they never disappointed, right? It was never anything so crazy outlandish that it didn't make sense, but it was also never anything that was like, oh man, that sucks, it should be higher. Except Choppers, but Choppers was deliberately a joke. So, but post-time skip, I've consistently felt underwhelmed by what bounties are, and I've always felt like there's not as much, there's just not as much reason to get hyped by it. Anyway, I don't know why I went into all of that, because let's hope that we get something better from Egghead. I don't know. But even in Egghead, I feel like we're going to get something similar, where, as it's been mentioned multiple times in the stream, I feel like 5.6 is going to be the cap for Luffy in the story, which means that no matter what Luffy does this arc, no matter how amazing it is, even if Luffy fucking solos all 5 Gorosei, Oda's going to throttle what Luffy's bounty is so he doesn't hit 5.6 and pass up Roger too early, right? So it's just going to be underwhelming no matter how you spin it. Big Al, thanks for the 5. If Strats show up to Elbaf and Giants have been talking about how they have beef with Sanhwa Wolf, he's going to end up being matched up with Usopp in the final fight. I think Van Augur is a good matchup for Usopp. I think even if you go back to Van Augur's introduction, it was Usopp-centric in that I think Usopp was the one looking with... he saw the birds being shot out of the sky, and then he realized that someone was sniping from a full island away. Kenny says, did they know he scarred Kaido? But that's kind of the point, right? Which is that you can get into the technicalities of like, okay, well, maybe they didn't know he scarred Kaido or something. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they didn't. But it's just underwhelming for me as the reader to see the characters do so much and go through so much, and then it's like, okay, Luffy, your bounty is now from 1.5 billion, you're now 3 billion. Zoro, you're like the same bounty as Katakuri. It's like, motherfucker, did you see what this guy did this whole arc? Sanji, you're still like being... like, you just mop the floor with Queen, right? You're still like, what even is Sanji's bounty at this point? Let me see. I don't remember everybody's off the top of my head. I know Sanji didn't cross the 1 billion threshold, which he should have. Oh, wait, no, he did. I'm bad. No, my bad. Wait, did he? Am I crazy? I am crazy. I just don't remember the bounties now. No, I'm sorry, my mistake. He's 1.32 billion. He did not cross Jinbei though, which he should have. There's no reason that Sanji should be below Jinbei in terms of bounty at this point, because it's just like, what did Jinbei really even do between the previous bounty he had, which was like 400 something billion? Was Jinbei 400 something billion? Previous Jinbei bounties, I feel like Jinbei's first one was like 400 something. 440, I want to say. I think his first bounty was 430. Yeah, he was 430, and then he beats Who's Who, and now it's 1.1 billion. It just doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Like, why? Why is beating Who's Who such a big deal? What the fuck? Anyway. JP, thanks for the 10. It makes me reluctant to think that Kizaru would die here because it feels like there's more Oda could do with his abilities. If he does sacrifice himself, do you think another endgame opponent will get his fruit? Somebody said something recently that made me even more strongly believe that Kizaru might use his fruit at the end of this arc to do something to use his awakening in some way to save to save the Strats or do something to stall the world government or something like that. So I don't feel like if this is the end of Kizaru, I still feel like we will see the full extent of his abilities by the end of the arc. You know? Do I think another endgame opponent will get his fruit? No, because I think Kizaru's fruit is just a little strong. So I feel like someone like NL, right? If NL gets defeated, then you get to see his fruit in the hands of... If he gets fruit farmed, you get to see his fruit in the hands of someone more dangerous and scary with it, right? Same with, Absalom getting killed and then Shiryu getting his fruit, right? With Kizaru, I feel like it can only go backwards in the sense that, if Kizaru dies, then his fruit gets eaten by somebody else. it's just going to be a weaker character, right? It's not quite as interesting. I feel like Kizaru is the most, just the whole idea of Kizaru as being the super fast, deadly character, I feel like it fits him. I wouldn't want to see his fruits in the hand of somebody else. Personally, I wouldn't want that. But maybe a Blackbeard pirate just steals it. The Low Man, thanks for the 5. Jinbei was a former warlord, which is why he's near Zoro. But But the thing is, his bounty was already 430 million before Wano, right? So the former warlord stuff doesn't apply anymore because that's already accounted for, right? Jinbei being like with everything he did before at Marineford, being a Whitebeard pirate veteran, Fisher Tiger veteran, former warlord, all of that stuff, the strength that he had, all of that accounted for. They gave him a bounty of 430 million. Right? That was Jinbei's bounty. That was the threat they assessed him at. After that, he does one thing, which is he defeats Who's Who. Oh my god, give him a 1.1 billion berry bounty. The fuck? How does that make any sense? You know, I don't get it. Also, I think Zoro and Katakuri are near in strength, but Luffy after Wano should have had 4 bill. No, Luffy after Wano should have had the highest bounty of any pirate by far, because Luffy after Wano, he was not quite as strong as Kaido, Big Mom, and Shanks, we can assume, just because Gear 5th has time limits issues, stuff like that, right? So strength-wise, he's at least in their ballpark. I think everybody agreed that Luffy is Yonko tier, essentially. Even if you don't believe that he beats them 1v1 or whatever, he's in their tier of strength, right? But beyond that, Luffy's crew is stronger than Kaido's crew and Big Mom's crew. We saw that straight up. Shanks' crew, we still don't know. But Luffy's crew is stronger than the other Yonko's crews. Then Luffy also has a grand fleet, which far surpasses, say, Shanks' fleet, right? Luffy also has Nico Robin, which is the key to essentially ending the world in ancient weapons. So already on top of that, he's got the keys to being Pirate King. On top of that, and reading poneglyphs, on top of that, Luffy has 3 out of the 4 road poneglyphs. So he's far closer to being Pirate King than any of the other Yonko ever were, right? And on top of that, Luffy has the allied nations of Wano, Zou, Fishman Island, all basically on his side, right? Like, the samurai of Wano that the world government have feared for so long, they're Luffy's fucking... That's Luffy's squad right there. The Minks, who, like, are a nation of warriors that, like, their leaders are, like, commander level and everything like that, they're on Luffy's side. Fishmen, who fucking rule the sea, they're talking about fucking raising the Fishman flag, right? Like, you stack everything together... And it's like Luffy, and just in terms of what Luffy's done, right? Forget just strength. Luffy fucked up Big Mom's whole operation, right? So he does that first. He fucked up Doflamingo's whole operation, and then he goes on and fucks up Kaido's whole operation. He's responsible for the defeat of Kaido and the Beast Pirates, right? At the end of the day, how does none of the Yonko have a rap sheet similar to that? His rap sheet is so, like, what the fuck has Shanks done? The world government even fucking talk about how Shanks is just a pacifist and he's basically just kept the peace for all these years. What has Big Mom done? Like, how is Luffy's, in any conceivable way, in terms of achievements or in terms of actual resources and strength and, like, military force and how close he is to Pirate King, how close he is to ancient weapons, etc., how is he anywhere close to the same level in terms of bounty as the other Yonko, right? He should be higher than any of them, right? He should be at, like, at least higher than Kaido, Big Mom, Shanks. Whether he's approaching Whitebeard, Roger level, we don't know yet because we don't exactly know how strong, like, what resources Roger had in his prime. We know he had access to ancient weapons. We know that he got to the One Piece, etc., basically. But you can't make an argument. Like, the only argument you can make for, like, Kaido, Big Mom, Shanks having a higher bounty than Luffy is that, like, individually, they would still probably beat him in a dragged out fight just because Gear 5th has a time limit or whatever. But he's still fucking close enough to them that he can go toe to toe with them. And then everything else that he has far exceeds what they have, right? Shanks' only thing is that his crew is likely still stronger than Luffy's core crew. That's the only regard in which one other Yonko has an edge on Luffy at that point in time. There's no argument for Luffy's bounty being lower than the rest of theirs. It's fucking stupid. Dripty Sauce says the warlord abolishment happened during Wano, so Jinbei's bounty went to his next increase. No, Jinbei was no longer a warlord. Jinbei was no longer a warlord, even starting the time skip, so it doesn't matter. Wait, why does joining the crew gives him a bounty increase on its own? but Sanji's already part of the crew. So how does that make any fucking sense? I don't get it. What does that even mean? Joining the crew gives him a bounty increase? Why would joining the crew give him a bounty increase? When has that ever happened for anyone? Robin joined the Straw Hats and her bounty increased from 79 billion to 80 million. The only reason that they did that is because they wanted to update her bounty so that she could have a new bounty poster. I think that's what I read or something like that somewhere. But she joined the fucking Straw Hat Pirate crew. Her bounty went from 79 million to 80 million. Why is and she's like the most valuable asset in the world or whatever. Why would Jinbei get a 600 million, like 400 million to 1.1 billion? Why would he get a 600, like 1 billion something, right? Why would he get a 600 million berry bounty increase for just joining Luffy's crew? How does that, like, that's higher, that's more than double what his bounty already was. What is that? In fact, it makes so little sense. Think about this. Jinbei was already fucking part of the Big Mom Pirates before this. He was part of the Big Mom Pirates, and he was part of the Whitebeard Pirates. Why does joining Luffy's crew have, like, suddenly balloon his bounty up from 430 million to 1 billion? Unless they're saying beating Who's Who matters that much. I'm actually so fucking, like, the more I think about the bounties, the more stupid they are. Doesn't make any fucking sense. Manny says, okay, so Manny said what I think is the most accurate point, which is Jinbei probably got the increase just for the Sanji being mad gag, which I think is true, but it's also one of the factors that, like, if it's this extreme, like, I would have been cool with it if Jinbei's bounty was already, like, 800 million or something, then it makes sense, or, like, even 700 million, I don't know. But when it's this extreme just for gag, again, it just makes me not excited for bounties, because it's just, like, when I feel underwhelmed by so many characters' bounties so often, like, the moment I read Luffy has a 3 billion berry bounty, I was just like, that's so lame. That's beyond, that's just so, like, underwhelming doesn't even begin to describe it. 3 billion berry, right? The same as Kid, right? The bounty reflects your status as a pirate, like, just the pirates always flex and compare bounties to each other. I'm just like, after this whole long ass arc of Kid just being an absolute disappointing joke, and Luffy just going above and beyond and doing so much. You think it's fun for me as a reader to read, like, okay, Luffy's bounty is the same as Kid's? No. You think it's fun, I'm like, okay, Jinbei's bounty is randomly 1 billion, and Sanji's is still below that, and Zoro's is still 1.1 billion, even though he's, like, so much stronger than King at this point, and clearly much more of a threat. Like, it's just, it's not fun. It's just, I don't know. It's stupid, in my opinion. Krev Glee, thanks for the 10. Mommy Morj, you're my favorite streamer. Your rant/analysis have rubbed off on me because I found myself becoming both more critical and more appreciative of my favorite mangas and games. Thank you very, very, very much for your first super. I'll say this, which is, even though I'm happy that you enjoy my rants, sometimes I don't even know that I'm upset about something till I start getting into it. Like, I knew that I was just starting this bounties thing, and I didn't plan on saying much about it previously, but all it started with was the thought that, like, you know, I don't really know all the Straw Hat's bounties right now, and I was like, why don't I know all their bounties right now? Oh yeah, because I've been, like, a little disappointed with Straw Hat bounties in the New World, the way that they've been done so far. And then that got me on this train of thought, which is like, oh yeah, they've been really fucking stupid in a lot of ways so far. But don't be like me. You don't need to be as, like, there's just a part of me that, like, once certain things cross my mind, I just can't stop critiquing, and it's just the way it is. It's better to try and enjoy what you can enjoy. It's nicer if you can enjoy more things. Life is better that way. It's just better if you can enjoy more things. So, you know, you don't need to mentally come up with rants of, like, the different manga and games and such that you play. But I appreciate that you have fun at least listening to me do it. Okay. All right, let's go. Let's do this. So, bounties post Egghead. Luffy, Zoro. I'm going to assume that Jinbei's will still be higher than Sanji's because of the gag being so fucking funny. I think by the end of the story, I think Oda is saving the end of the story for certain things, so I think Sanji's bounty will be higher than Jinbei's at the end of the story. I think Chopper will get a real bounty as his final bounty, things like that. Frankie might pass Usopp up again by the end. What are the current bounties? Current bounties are... Let's write out the current bounties first. Wait. Let's do this super professional, okay? Hold on. You guys got to see how professional this is going to be. So this is going to be current, do that in blue, and then new. We'll do that in, I don't know, we'll just do new and red. I don't want to think about this too much. Okay, current. So let's see, Straw Hat bounties. Okay. Luffy's got 3 bill. $1.111 bill. Come on, man. Turn blue. What the fuck? Okay, you know what? It's just always. We're just doing everything in red. We're doing everything in red. I'm not fucking with this. Wait, unless. Just change, please. Okay, never mind. We can do it. We can do it. No. Okay, hold on. We're gonna do this from the start, all right? Okay, from the start, Luffy is 3 bill. Zoro is 1.111 bill. Jinbei is not in order. Why is this not in order? Jinbei 1.1 bill. What the fuck is Sanji? Sanji's 1.032. Who's next? Usopp or Robin? Robin is 930. Robin's is randomly really high again. Like what it should be, I guess. And then we got what? The big drop to Usopp, Brook, Frankie, right? Usopp 500 mil. $4 mil. 383 mil. I feel bad Frankie didn't get his deserving bounty this arc. Let me see. Chopper's is 1,000, right? Okay. Okay, so that's their current. All right. Now we're gonna do their new bounties. This will be in red. All right. Here we go. Now we're cooking. All right. Luffy's, I'm just going to go ahead and say, fuck, I don't even know. 4? I feel like 4 makes sense, you know? I don't think Luffy's hitting... Okay, I'll say what Luffy should be after this whole incident should be 5.6 billion. Like, he's literally fucking up the order of the entire world right here, this arc. What's happening here. Rodrigo Aliaga says, Morj, did you talk about Drake and Kendrick lol? I did. I'm not going to derail the stream right now talking about it, but you can go back to the beginning of the stream to hear my thoughts. I think it's one of the first things that I talked about, literally. Luffy, I'll say, is 3 bill. So Luffy knew... Okay, reasonably, Luffy should hit like 5 bill or something like that off of this. But because Oda's been just throttling Luffy's bounty, I feel like 4 billion is possible, right? 4 bill? Zoro has not done anything, But Oda so far has randomly given large-ass bounty increases to characters for not doing anything. Shakir says, if Sanji is lower than Jinbei after all he did was stack boxes and carry Zoro, Oda is cooked. I don't even know. Okay. 5.6 bill, I think that's Luffy's final bounty. Do we think this is going to be Luffy's final bounty? I don't know about that. I'm going to say 4 bill roughly. I see 4.0656 would put him around Shanks, showing he caught up to him. I think that's about right. I'm just going to say it at 4. I'm not going to get super specific. Zoro defeated Lucci. Yeah. Like, is that much more than defeating King? I feel like it's about the same, right? I mean, Luffy should be much higher than 4, but that's what I said in Wano 2. So I don't know what it's supposed to be. The low man, thanks for the 2. Luffy at 5 bill is crazy because that's like Roger level. But did Roger ever do anything like this? What Luffy's doing at Egghead? This is like an unprecedented incident. This is fucking huge, you know? Like, Luffy's damn close. He's got 3 poneglyphs. He's going to be leaving with Bonnie on his crew. Like, just think about what he's doing, right? He's leaving with Bonnie on it. So on his crew after this, he will have Bonnie, who can control all the world's pacifista, and Robin, who can read the poneglyphs, the only person in the world who can do it, right? That's on top of Luffy, the strength of his crew, the fact that, like you remember Luffy's bounty after punching a Celestial Dragon? Well, he did a lot more than just that, but you know what I mean? Like, Luffy's been punching Gorosei left and right this arc. Did Roger ever punch a Celestial Dragon? I don't know. One sec, let me just make sure I'm not late for something. Yeah, Roger started an era. Okay, let's leave Roger out of it. He started an era, but he started the era after he died. He's not getting a new bounty after he died. Like, that's... Come on now. Like, yeah, if you could give Roger a bounty for what he said at his final words, it would probably be higher than 5.5 bill, but he died doing that, so they're not going to give him a new bounty. They're not going to be like, Roger started this era, we got to fucking raise his bounty. It's like, okay, well, he died starting the era, so I don't know if we can do that. Nick Dawson, thanks for the 5. Sanji's end-of-series bounty should be 3.66 bill, and no one can tell me otherwise. 3 for Sanji and 6.6 for Germa. It seems high, but it just makes sense. I could see that. So I'll say this. I kind of always thought that Zoro's final bounty might be like 3.333 because he has 3 swords and like a lot of his technique. Like, I think a lot of his bounties have been multiples of 3. Or at least they were pre-time skip. I guess now they're not. Now it's changed. Like before, his first bounty was like 60 million and then 120 million. And then I think, what was the next one? I thought he had, yeah, I guess 320 million. Zoro's bounties were like that for a little bit. So I was like 3.3. I don't know. Just the 3 swords thing. A lot of his attacks, I don't know. Like Ashura's 9. I don't know. 3.66 does seem high to me for Sanji. Because like even to me, I feel like 3.33 seems high for Zoro. Wait, what's Mihawk's bounty again? Mihawk bounty, let's see. Oh, you know what? I'm stupid. No, Zoro's final bounty will probably be like 3.6, because Mihawk's is 3.59. Yeah, Zoro's will likely be 3.6, right? Feels similar to, like, Roger having a slightly lower bounty than what Luffy's final bounty will be. Because a lot of people think Luffy's will be 5.6, Roger's 5.5. I don't know. Yeah, Mihawk being at 3.59, I think 3.6 makes sense, right? It just seems similar to the Luffy-Roger thing. 3.066 for Sanji, I could see that. Sanji having 3 billion, or like... Sanji having 3 billion, Zoro having 3.6, I could easily see that being the case. Yeah, 36-pound cannon, it just feels like it could make sense to me. Okay, let's say okay, what bounty do you think Zoro will have after this? I'll do chat polls. First, let's do Luffy. We'll make this all chat-based. Because I do have to also wrap up stream. We went really long. Luffy bounty post Egghead. No increase. Well, okay, we're just all okay. We'll say no increase is always an option. 4 bill. I don't even know how to do a poll for this. Okay, let's say the options are no increase, 4 billion, no increase if the world government tries to hide it, but the world government can't really hide it, can they? So he has to have an increase. Okay, I'll say 4 billion as the low point. 4 billion, then 4.1 to 4.5 bill. Let's say like 5 billion, 5.6 billion. This, okay, the options make no sense, but just vote. I stopped trying to make it make sense. The options make no sense. One's exact, some are exact numbers, one's a range. I don't care. I actually don't think we can do polls for all of these. This is difficult. Okay, most people think above 4 billion. I'm going to go ahead and say 4.5 billion. Let's go ahead and say 4.5 billion. What was Kaido's? Maybe Luffy will pass Kaido. Let's just say 4.5 billion. Roll with it. All right. How do we feel about... okay, 4 bill. I think 4. Chat says 4.5. I think 4. I don't know if we're going to do voting for all of this. Jinbei... Because the thing is, like... It's so hard to predict because sometimes characters can literally do nothing and they'll get an increase. Like Dressrosa is the perfect example. Like Dressrosa, I think Nami did very literally nothing that, or like Nami or Chopper did very literally nothing that arc. Brook helped with Jorah. I mean, they all kind of did, but like, you know what I mean? Well, Nami, let's say you can literally not be on the island is what I'm saying and still get a bounty increase, right? So Jinbei, even though Jinbei's doing nothing so far this arc, it's like, well, maybe maybe all the strats will get just a default increase of like 400, like 200 million or something. Let me check one thing. What's the time? My phone's not loading. All right. Okay. No, Jinbei's bounty increase was because the warlord system got abolished? No, because Jinbei was no longer a warlord at that point in time. Jinbei had quit the warlords after pre-time skip. Jinbei in charge of the warehouse. This is too difficult. Zora's bounty, fuck it. Let's just start throwing some stuff at the board. Zora's bounty, because Zora hasn't done anything. I mean, he beat Lucci, but nothing like crazy. Like beating Lucci shouldn't raise his bounty, in my opinion. Like he's supposed to beat Lucci. Guts says, I think Oda will finally put Sanji above Jinbei. I'm kind of curious if this is going to be because Oda likes doing a gag with Sanji's bounty. Before the gag was basically, oh, Sanji's bounty picture is always off, right? Then it was like, oh, Sanji's name, it's Germa Vinspoke or whatever, and like he was sad about that. And now the thing is like, oh, Sanji's bounty is lower than Jinbei's. So I don't know. Gerard, thanks for the 5. This is the worst thing anyone has ever done as far as the world government is concerned. It should be the highest bounty in history if we're being serious. It should. Just like Robin should have been like 2-3 billion from the start, but it's not. Jamie22 says, what if it's only Luffy's that increases? I kind of really hate when Oda does that. But like, it has been a thing more recently. I wouldn't be surprised. There's no reason to raise Usopp's bounty here. But at the same time, I think it's hard to draw patterns because we've only had so many bounty increases. I think sometimes Oda will raise only Luffy's bounty, and then other times Oda will raise everyone's, and if he's raising everyone's, then they all get increases regardless of input. So Dressrosa is the example. Because I think Oda didn't want to do a thing where he raises like half the crew's bounty and then the other half doesn't get a raise. So he raised everybody who was at Dressrosa, but then everybody else who wasn't even there, he just gave them like a default 50 million increase. Zora bounty 2.2 bill. I don't think Zora's hitting 3.6, but like that's higher than Mihawk's. B. Muhammad Tariq Humaid says Oda never put Sanji's bounty at number 3 if you see from pre to post time skip. I think he did because it was higher than Zoro's, right? It was higher than Zoro's post Whole Cake Island, and Jinbei was part of the crew at that point, and Jinbei's was higher than Sanji, so Sanji's was number 3 at that point, you know? Okay, fuck it. Let's just throw some shit out. Zoro's will be 1.8 bill. Let's say that. 1.8? Does that sound good? It's just short of what... What are Admiral bounties? I think Admirals are given 3 bill. Is that right? So it's not... Never mind. It's not just short of Admiral bounties. I'm going to say 1.8. 1.8 for Zoro. How's that sound? Jinbei? Maybe they figure out they made a mistake, an error. They lower his back to like 600 or something. I think Jinbei should get no increase this arc. But I wonder if Oda's going to do a thing where everybody gets an increase no matter how much you contributed. That's what I'm worried about. Zoro getting 3 bill? But that's, to me, that's just insane because it's like, after everything that Luffy did in Wano, right? Everything that Luffy did in Wano, that got him a 3 billion berry bounty. The fuck is Zoro doing this arc that's getting him a 3 billion berry bounty? Yeah, the events of Egghead seem to be larger than the world government. Than Wano for the world government. I agree, but it's just there's. I guess what I'm thinking more so of is the. It's not even the logic of it. It's kind of just what's Oda likely to do based on the fact that he has to kind of slow down the Straw Hats bounty growth. You know, one. What's the chances that all the Straw Hats have over like a billion berry bounty at the end of the story? It seems absurd to me, but I'm looking at it and I'm like. Could it kind of be possible? I mean, it's the Pirate King's crew. I'm just like, Nami didn't even fucking do anything in Whole Cake Island, in Wano. And her bounty is fucking 366 million. At some point, like, Nami's gonna help them find Laugh-Tale and probably get some decent wins against other major pirates and such. You know, like, Usopp's at 500 mil with barely having done anything. Elbaf is still around the corner and stuff. Robin's already flirting with a billion. She's gonna be over a billion by the end of the story, most likely. Frankie is woefully underrated in terms of bounty, right? Frankie, the dude's eventually going to make Pluton. Like, we know Frankie should be a lot higher than this. So I'm just like four of the 10 are already above a billion. Robin will get there, we know. Frankie should get there at some point. And then the others, I'm like, maybe just for symmetry as the story goes, Oda just bumps them all. Because again, like, just the fact that Oda started doing shit like in Dressrosa, some of the crew aren't even there just for existing. They get a 50 million increase. It's kind of weird. You know, like, at a certain point, would Oda just give everyone, like, a huge-ass increase for just being the Pirate King's crew, for having gotten to Laugh-Tale? Okay, Jinbei. Let's just fucking do Jinbei. I'll say 1.4. Why is it doing this? Why is it doing this to me? 1.4 bill. I can't do this. I don't... Why... I can't do this. 1.3? You think it goes up slightly? But then Sanji should go up a lot more, I think. I think Sanji should go up more, but I feel like Oda's still going to pull a gag and not put him above Jinbei. Okay, fuck it. Let's just say... yeah, Sanji should get a lot more. Like, this is an arc where he should easily pass Jinbei. Fine, let's say Jinbei 1.2 bill. Man, I don't know if they're getting new bounties. Are they all getting new bounties? I don't know what to do. Fine, 1.2 bill for Jinbei. The thing is, the other big factor is we're not at the end of the arc yet. We don't know what Gorosei feats everyone's going to get. Like, we could easily see Sanji and Jinbei, like, fighting different... Like, Jinbei fighting a Gorosei or something like that. Zoro fighting a Gorosei. Things like that can happen, you know? Things like that can definitely happen. So we're not at the... You know... we're not certain yet how this is gonna play out. Also, let's get the likes up to 300. I'll say Jinbei 300. Fine. Let's throw Sanji 1.5 bill. Let's just do it. Let's see what happens. Robin. Let's say she passes 1.1.01. Let's say roughly 1 bill. Sure. Let's say she passes that mark. Usopp, I think. Let's say Usopp stays the same. No increase. 500 mil. Say he stays the same. Frankie, if there's an arc for him to get a boost, it would be this arc, right? And this might be ambitious, but I feel like Frankie getting to 800 million, I could see that happening. I could see that in the cards. Because if he does, like, I believe that Frankie will do something by the end of this arc. And keep in mind, that's not that insane, because other strats have gotten insane, like, huge increases. Like, again, Jinbei went from 430 million to over 1 billion for beating Who's Who, right? Shit like that happens. Brook, 383, I don't know. I don't think Brook's doing that much this arc. 440 mil? Nami, 400 mil plus. I'm really just eyeballing it at this point because I got no idea. Chopper will be another gag bounty. Say 2,000. Pretty good, huh? You think Usopp's is... I feel like Usopp's shouldn't go up, but I feel like if the entire cruise is going up a bit, Usopp's would go up, so it does make sense. I think looking at this Jinbei's bounty still just pisses me off the most because it just doesn't make any sense. He's got a higher bounty than fucking Katakuri, dude. Why does Jinbei have a higher bounty than Katakuri? He's nowhere near as strong. He's not done as much. He's just it just doesn't make any sense. I don't know why Jinbei's bounty is so high. It really throws things off for me. I think Zoro and Sanji's is low, but I think Jinbei's is like obscenely high. Robin's should have been a lot higher from the beginning, and Luffy's is obscenely low. Usopp's is more like there's some comedy elements there, like him being overrated. Frankie's is obscenely low, but Frankie's is understandable because he's like always in the Shogun, so people maybe don't understand what he is. Brook hasn't done much. No, I respect Jinbei, but I'm like, even if, like, I think Jinbei fans view him at most as being, like, 3rd commander level or something like that, right? I don't think most Jinbei fans have him above, like, I don't think Jinbei fans think he's stronger than, you know, Gear 4th Luffy in Whole Cake and Dressrosa, you know? Like, even if you think Jinbei's as strong as Doflamingo, I don't think Jinbei's as strong as Doflamingo personally, but let's say he's there. Let's say Gear 4th... Sorry, let's say Luffy... Mixing up words. Let's say Jinbei is as strong as freaking... Let's say he's as strong as... Bound Man Gear 4th Luffy that was fucking up Doflamingo. Let's say he's that strong. In that case, he's still, like, not as strong as Cracker. You know? Or at best, let's say roughly as strong as Cracker, right? He's like Cracker Jack, like Yonko 3rd Commander level or whatever. He's also not like a very violent dude like Cracker or Jack or something like that. He's just a dude. You know, he's strong, he's very capable, but he's not there, right? Like 1.1 billion, that's above Katakuri. And there's, like, he's not a malicious calamity like King, Queen, and Jack. You know, if anything, he's probably like a nicer dude than Katakuri. Why is his bounty higher than Katakuri? What has he done? Okay, no, even if you have Jinbei as low Yonko too, like, that's fine. I think everyone can agree Jinbei is not Yonko first mate level, right? I think most people can agree that, right? So if we look at, like, Marco's bounty, fucking Marco's bounty is like 1.3 billion. Why is Jinbei, like, right there? Like, I feel like there's a gap, right? There's some, like, why is Jinbei that strong? Because the thing is, like, with other bounties, you can kind of be like, okay, well, bounties are not always based on strength. That's why, like, Zoro and Sanji's bounties are lower than King and Queen's, right? But Jinbei's bounty, it would just be based on strength because he's a really nice dude. He doesn't do that much bad shit. And his bounty was only 430 million beforehand. It was just 430 million. And this is like a dude like that's a known entity. He's been around the block. He was on the Whitebeard Pirates, the Fisher Tiger Pirates, like the Sun Pirates, right? The Big Mom Pirates. He's been there. He's been doing this. 430 million. That's where they had him at. He beats Who's Who. They give him a 1.1 billion berry bounty. It's mind blowing. Like I genuinely don't understand it. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. I just don't get it. JWP, thanks for the 10. I didn't think Straw Hats would get new bounties, but if they're going to meet Shanks soon, it would be weird if Shanks' top crew were higher than Luffy's crew. I think Straw Hats will have same bounties or similar to Red Hair. I do think same or similar to Red Hair does make sense. That does follow to me. The gag again of Sanji having a lower bounty. I don't know if it's going to be that specific gag, but so far, Oda feels the need to do a gag with Sanji's bounty. I think he doesn't, like, it's supposed to be funny each time, right? So, if you go back through the first time, okay, so I think the first time, so each bounty increased, right? When Luffy got a 30 million berry bounty, Luffy was happy because, he's happy. And Usopp was happy because his head got in the frame. And I think Sanji was a little unhappy because Sanji, if I recall correctly, I think Sanji was hoping that his head would be in the frame, right? I think, if I recall correctly. Then the next time, Luffy and Zoro got bounties, and Sanji is upset because he doesn't get a bounty. So again, the joke is on Sanji. He doesn't get a bounty, Luffy and Zoro do. Next time around, everyone gets bounties. Sanji gets a really good first bounty, 77 million, but the joke is that his face is drawn. So he's sad about that. So again, the gag. Then New World, right? Next bounty Sanji gets, at least that he gets to react to, is post Whole Cake Island. And this time he's happy. His bounty's higher than Zoro's. It's third in the crew. But it's got like Vinsmoke Sanji as his official name, which he's sad about because he doesn't like that name, right? So sad again. And then finally post Wano, it's like, okay, well now his bounty's back to being fourth in the crew, so now it's below Jinbei. So he's again not satisfied. So yeah, it's just like Oda's always going to think of something, at least at the moment. I think the final bounties, everybody will likely be satisfied with. Like, I think Chopper will get a real bounty as his final bounty, not a joke. I think Sanji won't have a joke as his final bounty. I think it will be third highest in the crew. But I think until we get to final bounties, I do think that Sanji is set for some sort of a gag. Whether the gag will be, again, being sad about Jinbei or not, I don't know. Okay. All right. Mr. 9 says we can't scale Jinbei or Who's Who reliably. I mean, but we know that they're fucking below the calamities. We at least know that. We know that Sanji did something much more impressive than beating Who's Who, which was beating Queen. I don't know. I just don't know why the world government gave him a 600 million berry bounty increase after beating Who's Who. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. Simex749 says Jinbei being higher than Sanji was because Jinbei is far more influential than Sanji and now boss, and now he's part of a future Pirate King's crew. The problem with that argument is that Jinbei was already part of the Whitebeard Pirates, who were a much bigger threat, at least perceived by the world government, than the Straw Hat Pirates currently are, right? Like, Whitebeard was the dude on the seat, like the king of the ocean. Luffy's still not king of the ocean status, but Whitebeard and Whitebeard Pirates were considered to be the king of the ocean post-Roger. Jinbei was part of that crew. Did not have a fucking 1.1 billion berry bounty, despite all the influence that he still carried, right? This was just 2 years ago. Then, Jinbei was part of Big Mom's crew. The world government still hold like Big Mom and her pirates, like her crew is a more long-running, tenured Yonko crew than Luffy and his fleet, right? We, the reader, know that Luffy's the future Pirate King, but it's not like the world government's reading the story being like, Luffy's going to be the next Pirate King, therefore, now that, forget Whitebeard and Big Mom's crews, yeah, he was part of those, but now that he's part of Luffy's crew, now we need to give him a 1.1 billion berry bounty. That doesn't make any fucking sense. It just doesn't make any sense. It's one of the reasons that I really dislike bounties post time skip. There's many reasons, but like this is it's like an example of it. Like I look at there's not been a time outside of Whole Cake Island. Like Luffy's 1.5 bill post Whole Cake Island was the first time post time skip I was like, finally, a satisfying bounty that feels like it takes into account everything that actually happened, the accomplishments of the main character, and all that. All right, everybody. This is our rough look. It's very tame bounty predictions, obviously, but at the same time, I think it's assuming that the world government, that Oda has to hold off on like big bounty increases till Luffy becomes Pirate King. And I think I'm kind of assuming that the cap for Luffy is going to be like 5.6 bill. So, yeah, it's a few things factoring in there. All right. I'm going to call it there for this stream. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Here we've got an exciting chapter coming up around the corner. And yeah, I will talk to you all later. Peace.